We are live. Welcome to the NBA Deeper Dive. It is Friday, November 24th. It's incredible. I say the date like multiple times a day. I never remember it before I'm about to say it. It's wild. I have to look constantly. This is the Deeper Dive. As I mentioned, I am Josh Engleman. I'm joined by Adam Scherer. We're brought to you by Vivid Picks. 8-game slate ahead of us, and I would say it only looks worse than it did this morning. We got one piece of news that we wanted, and then they added on two pieces of news that we definitely did not want. And we're going to dig into that right now. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter, by the way. Adam, what's up?
Yeah, news today is problematic, but we got Bam news, so like that's good at least.
We did indeed. And we're going to dive right into this one. I don't want to run short on time today. Miami Heat, 5-point dogs. We're talking right about Bam right now. In New York, 212 total, taking on the Knicks. We got the news. Bam Adebayo is probable for today, available, whatever we want to call it. Duncan Robinson, though, is out, and there is a trickle down there. So we're seeing Josh Richardson projected for 14% ownership, Kyle Lowry projected for 14% ownership, and then Caleb Martin is at 25%. I want to start with Caleb Martin. I'm having trouble getting to 25% of him. That feels like a lot, although the price and the position are right up my alley. He's just not that good.
Yeah, it's like I get why you would get there. I'm finishing up running my stuff now, so I don't know yet where I personally would be at. But like this is just one of those where I get why, especially with the way news looks right now, like with Giannis projected in, with Halliburton projected in, I get why you would get to him. Shooting guard, small forward, 4K. You're just kind of punting one of those positions. They're not the strongest positions. It's opening up, getting to Giannis, getting to Halliburton, getting to plenty of other good plays on the slate. He should get extra minutes without Robinson. Like that's not too big of a question. The bigger question is, how many extra minutes? He's around a 0.7 fantasy point per minute guy. He projects for between 5 and a little over 5x. Like I get why the ownership's there. We do also still have him with a 21% chance of being optimal. So it's not like he's going that over owned. I think it really just speaks to the positional eligibility.
Yeah, I think so too. And I'm just wondering, like I haven't dug into it yet. My guess is that there's just, I know one thing. I'm getting way more of Naz Reid as a similarly priced value option, which certainly doesn't make me feel any better, but it's sort of the guy who feel better. Well, I don't love getting a backup like that in these situations, but he's the kind of backup I want.
Right, yeah, like at least he does things when he's on the floor.
Very true. Very true. So right now I'm very light on Caleb Martin, but I understand the path of getting to him. 25% just felt kind of high. Josh Richardson at 4,100, I think looks to me better than Caleb Martin.
I mean, we have him projected like a 1.5 behind Martin. He's $100 more. He doesn't have forward eligibility. To me, it seems like he should probably be lower owned.
Let's see. Let me look at where we have these guys. So we have Martin 21. We have Josh Richardson at 19.5. That's probably the difference. I have Richardson at 20.5 and Martin at 19. So that's probably causing at least a little bit of this disparity. What do we do for minutes for Martin? Where the hell are those columns? Oh, I'm on ownership. That'll do it.
We have Martin at 26.7. We have Richardson at 28.6.
Okay.
So an extra minute for Richardson.
That's interesting. I mean, these guys are basically the same per minute dudes. Like to a T. What do we have? Caleb Martin projected. Okay, 21.43 and 26.7. 0.8. That's aggressive to me in this spot. Yeah, I kind of like Jay Rich more. I got the 15% of Jay Rich. I'm just not getting the Caleb Martin. The weird thing to me is that I'm not getting I don't have any Butler. One share. I don't have Bam at 9K, but I'm not surprised by that. I'm not getting to Kyle Lowry at 5K. I guess I'm not mad about it. Like, I don't want this early game. I'd like more swaps for whenever this stuff comes out. So I guess I'm happy with what's happening.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I just finished up my stuff. I'm the opposite of you. I would have 38% Caleb Martin right now. I would have like 5% Josh Richardson. And again, that doesn't really surprise me because I also have Martin a little bit ahead of Richardson and better positional eligibility. He's just showing up a lot for me. Hopefully that goes away. Hopefully we get, Giannis news and Halliburton news, and that either goes away or at least I don't have to worry about having 40% Caleb Martin and then not wanting him anymore. But I get why he's showing up. I don't really have a problem with it on this slate. I don't think we have a lot of good value today at all.
That's a very, very true statement.
And the most obvious, for lack of a better phrase, value play that we have right now is a center that might play 20 minutes. Like, I don't mind having Caleb Martin at a forward position instead.
No, not at all. Yeah, like I said, I totally get it. It's just not what I'm getting. But clearly, with no Duncan Robinson here, someone's stepping into a chunk of playing time. We just don't know who that is.
Agreed.
They don't really have a ton of bodies.
I do have slightly more Naz Reid than Caleb Martin. I just have a ton of both.
Okay. Anything else you want to touch on here for Miami?
Not really. I'm getting to like 10% Butler, which is fine. It's Jimmy Butler. He's not a great player or anything, but he's 8% owned. So right around the field, a little bit over on him. And then I have like 2% Kyle Lowry. That's interesting, I guess. He's 14% owned at 5K. I'm not getting there. My assumption, just sort of looking at my other exposures right now and how much I have of Trey Lyles, Caleb Martin, Naz Reid, is that I am foregoing the 5K range, I would assume. So where people are playing Kyle Lowry, I am just giving up more salary and then making it up somewhere else.
All righty. The Knicks side, we don't really have too much to talk about here. 8% owned Julius Randle is the high mark on DraftKings. He's 12. What happened?
No, I was going to say, I'm not entirely foregoing the 5K range. I have a lot of Jaden Ivey.
Oh, so do I, as you know. So we will get to that in a second. But first, 8% ownership to Randle on DraftKings, 12 on FanDuel. Nothing is higher than that for anybody. I actually have 16% of Mitchell Robinson right now at 5,500. I don't mind that at all. That seems totally reasonable for today, but that's just sort of randomness for the Knicks. I don't think anything for New York looks good.
No, me neither. I'm not really getting to this team. It's definitely one of those teams where, like, when I go to click to see who I'm getting to, you're like kind of holding your breath, like, God, I hope I'm not just getting some random dude thrown in a bunch of lineups. And my highest owned guy on DraftKings right now would be Julius Randle at 6%, 2% Brunson, 1% quickly. I'm not getting any Mitchell Robinson, but if you wanted to get to him as a 6% owned center that has a ceiling, by all means. But Randle, Brunson, Robinson, Barrett, like, these guys are all just low probability, mediocre contrarian plays.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't mind if a little bit of that Mitchell Robinson went away, but, every once in a while, the dude just plays 33 minutes and falls into a really crazy stat line.
Yeah, and center's not the best position today. I mean, you have Bam, but he's relatively expensive. You have Vooch in a pretty annoying game. Pirtle, Gafford's price came up. Lopez is whatever. Jokic is Jokic, but he's super expensive.
Yeah.
You have Şengün, you have an expensive Sabonis. Like, there's obviously a lot of centers that are playable, but this isn't one of those slates where it's just like, oh, there's like 4 centers that are just, how do you choose between them?
Yeah. Yeah, there's just going to be random guys that we're going to have a couple of these, I would imagine, where like I'm 2xing the field on some center and you're 2xing the field on another center in the same price range. And it's just like, okay, well, that's whatever works. We already have 800 people in here, 90 likes. Let's get up over 100 as we move on to the Chicago Bulls. 5.5 point underdogs here against Toronto, 216 total. Highest owned guy for the Bulls is 10% to DeRozan. So we have seen this become a little bit more muted on Chicago now that we know that Zach LaVine is available for today. We saw that, right? I mean, he's still listed as questionable, but I could have swore I saw that he was on track to play.
I hadn't, but I may have missed it.
Maybe I'm making that up. Did I dream that? I did take a nap earlier. I don't see that anywhere. Kobe White is now questionable. Zach LaVine participated in shoot around today.
Oh, okay. So
I knew I saw something that was like a positive note to Zach LaVine. I was just like, oh my God, am I dreaming about underdogs?
I hadn't seen anything about LaVine, but I also hadn't been glued to my phone.
Yeah. Zach LaVine participated in shoot around. Kobe White now questionable, which is also annoying at this point. But assuming LaVine and Kobe White both play, we have DeRozan at 10% ownership. We have 8% coming into Vooch on FanDuel. I would say nothing here looks great. Whether you want to get to DeRozan or Vooch or Levine, that's fine. If we lose Kobe White, however, $3,500 is the price tag on Ayo Dosunmu. $3,100 is the price tag on Javon Carter. $3,600 to Patrick Williams. $3,700 to Torrey Craig. They have value plays across the board now. Someone is about to get, 30 minutes redistributed. Something will look good for Chicago.
Yeah, if White is out. So if White's out, you're not opening up any real production. He's not a high usage guy when Vooch and Levine and DeRozan are in, but you are opening up those minutes, and you have enough cheap guys on the Bulls where whether you're talking $4,800 Caruso getting some more run, like he's already playable. And if Kobe White's out, he's only going to look better. But it also can open more minutes for Patrick Williams. It can open more minutes for Carter, for Dosunmu. They're all cheap enough. All three of those guys, Williams, $3,600, Carter, $3,100, Dosunmu, $3,500 on DraftKings. They're all cheap enough that, if one of them moves into the starting lineup, which one of them probably would, I assume, they're just cheap enough. They're going to look good in the extra minutes.
Yeah. Let's see.
With everybody projected in right now, I don't have more than 9% of anybody. I have 9% DeRozan, 8% Levine, so right around the field, slightly over on Levine, 5% of Vooch, like 1% Caruso. So I'm a little under the field there too. But the news here, White, and then also you do still have to keep an eye on Levine. Like he was listed as available like an hour before his game started the other day and still ended up not playing.
Yeah, I got to 11% DeRozan and then scattered amounts of everybody else. But you have to assume that if White ends up out or Levine ends up out, really, we're getting, and if they both end up out, we're getting tons of value from Chicago. But if we only get one, either direction, one of Dosunmu or Carter is my guess is going to be the guy that looks a little bit better. Although it does sort of depend on which guy is out. If it's White out, I'm guessing we get Dosunmu as the starter. But we'll know that either way. So that'll be helpful.
Yeah, I don't know.
Hopefully.
Like they could just, if it's White out, they could still go Patrick Williams as the starter.
Yeah, they can. They can. I don't know if they want to, but they can.
Yeah. Like I don't have a good feel for what they want to do there.
Whoever that starter is for whoever's questionable immediately becomes a pretty solid play today.
Yep. And whoever's coming off the bench between like this Dosunmu, Williams, Carter, they're at least still like viable, let's hope to run good in large field tournament type plays.
Yeah. Anything else for the Bulls?
No.
Precious Achiuwa is still questionable. Every other injury designation for Toronto on the injury report is not all that relevant. So as we look at them, 11% ownership coming into Siakam, around 10 to Anunoby, just shy of 10 for Schroeder and Pirtle. The most I have of anybody is Pascal Siakam. I have 14%. This is just another team in these two games at the start. Remember, 212 total, 216 total, without opening up players that weren't expected to play at the salaries they have. It's really hard for these two games to create anybody that's just owned a lot on a slate this size. And that's what we're seeing here.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I'm playing 150 lineups on DraftKings, I actually have a Raptor I have 7 Raptors in at least one of them, but Siakam is the highest owned one at 12%. So right around the field on him, slightly over. It's just an unappealing game, two slower teams. Siakam's price tag is still pretty reasonable at 8,200, so that's why I'm getting there. Same goes for Anunoby, who I'm getting like 9 to 10% of at 5,800, so pretty much in line with the field on him. I'm not getting much of anything else. 3% Schroeder, 1% Barnes and Pirtle, 1% Achiuwa, 1% Trent. Like Trent and Achiuwa can disappear very, very easily. Schroeder, Barnes, Pirtle, they're all just more secondary options where if you want to play a 6% owned Scotty Barnes, he's really good. He's got point guard, small forward eligibility, which is nice, but you just are going to have better looking options elsewhere that you can prioritize over him.
Yeah, these are just not great games. And we got one more of those not great games to come up in a little bit. Do you have anything else you want to add for Toronto?
No.
All righty. Schedule for the rest of the day. Very, very simple. NBA Live Before Lock coming up next. That will be at 6:30. They will take you all the way up until 7:30. Let's go ahead and cross those fingers that we get Giannis news and Halliburton news sometime before lock. Well, not sometime before lock, at least 15 minutes before lock. We also want to talk about Black Friday. That is today, by the way. And we got a deal for you. 50% off your first payment for whichever Sims package you're looking for. NBA side, NFL side, if that's what you're looking at, That's what you can get. 50% off using the promo code SIMS. You get all of the data on the back end, projections and ownership, boom bust tool. Then we have a top stacks tool in the NFL side. All of that exists. But then you also get our SIMS tool, which is the new thing that we've been running out over the past few months. Generate up to 5,000 lineups, or on the NFL side, 10,000 lineups in a moment's notice. Simulate all of those lineups against each other, get projected ROI data for players, for stacks, for the lineups themselves. You will not find a better way to generate and evaluate lineups via Stochastic than you will with this tool. It's absolutely fantastic. It will make you a better DFS player, full stop. Watch the videos that Greg and Steve have put out on how to use the tool. If you need a little bit more help, hop into our premium Discord. If you have any questions, we've got a Sims Lounge for that. 50% off. This code is going to go away. This is a Black Friday special. You want to get in the door now. If you used the promo code Millie last week, we didn't know that one was coming. We were just trying to celebrate Short Gamer TV, picking up a Millie. If you use that promo code Millie, you will get your own personal promo code for this Sims promo into your email so that you can use it sometime before the end of December. We didn't want you guys to be out in the cold. If you are willing to use a promo earlier, you still get this one. So go check it out. Denver Nuggets, 3-point favorites in Houston, 214 total. On the Denver side, no changes here. Jamal Murray out. On the Houston side, no changes here. Amen Thompson out. 7% ownership to Reggie Jackson is the high mark on DraftKings for Denver. It's 19 to Gordon on FanDuel, 10 more to Jokic where he's 12-5, 13 to Reggie Jackson on FanDuel as well. Jokic, by the way, in case I didn't say it, 12,900 today. Okay, this is interesting. I have one share of Julian Strother and no one else from the Nuggets.
So I'm 3x the field on Jokic, which in this case is like 11%. Happy to be there. Very, very difficult to get there. Like we mentioned earlier, the quote unquote best value play on DraftKings, the value play I have the most of, the highest owned guy right now on DraftKings, plays the same position as Jokic. So obviously you can play them together, but you're losing one of your center spots if you play Lyles. On top of that, you have Giannis, at least at the moment, in a great matchup against Washington. You have plenty of other spots to get to as well. Jokic is really expensive, and he's clearly earned this price tag. He's still at 2 fantasy points per minute in 8 games now without Jamal Murray. But the problem here is, 1, the value on this slate right now sucks. 2, Jokic is really expensive on a slate where you have other good plays to get to. And then 3, this should be a very slow-paced game. And Houston's top 5 in defensive rating this year. That's not as big a concern to me because Jokic is pretty much matchup proof in that regard. Like, obviously, you still prefer him to play teams that don't play defense, but the bigger thing is just the possessions. Denver's bottom 10 in pace. Houston is bottom 5 in pace. Like, Jokic can't do anything about how many possessions are in the game. And that makes it really hard for him to overcome. Like, yeah, he can shred Houston's defense. He probably will, but he's just going to project lower and not look as good when you're just taking possessions away from him, especially when you have these other games on the slate, like the Milwaukee-Washington one, that just have a total, like 30 points higher.
Yeah.
And they're just gonna have so many more possessions so you have, Jokic at on average 2 fantasy points per minute, but getting fewer possessions here. You have Giannis at 1.6 getting way more possessions and cheaper at a better position. It's just going to be tough to actually prioritize Jokic today.
Yeah. What makes you hate Jokic so much?
I'm 3x the field.
You have 15?
I have 11.
Close enough. I wouldn't mind it. I don't have it though. But what else is new?
Yeah. Other than that, I have 7% Gordon, 5% Jackson, 2% KCP, 1% Porter. I am not choosing to play Julian Strother instead of Nikola Jokic like you are.
Yeah, I'm just loaded up on Strother. I saw the one and I was just like, is that KCP? And I looked left. I was like, nope, sure isn't. 3,100 shooting guard, small forward. I know why it happened. That would be randomness. On the Houston side, it's not much different. 11% ownership coming into Alperen Şengün. That's the high guy on DraftKings. Nobody else is in double digits. He's also 11 on FanDuel. Van Vliet's 15. Jayshawn Tate is 12. Only guy I'm really getting to here is Şengün. I have some scattered shares of Van Vliet and Jabari Smith, but I think Şengün looks pretty good today.
Yeah, I mean, the thing working against him is the same thing we were just saying with Jokic. The number of possessions in this game is likely to be relatively low, but he's only 8,200. He's been about a 1.3 DraftKings point per minute guy this year. He's getting 11% ownership. I'm 2x the field at 20%. I'm getting the 5% Van Vliet at 8,100, and that's about it. I have a lineup with Jabari Smith right now, but Şengün is pretty much it for me from Houston. If I started to get some more Van Vliet, that would also be fine. He just plays so many minutes that he can't look that bad. But Şengün looks like the best play from the game to me, at least on DraftKings. You do, obviously have foul risk with him always, but also a pretty scary matchup here. But can't do a whole lot about that.
Yeah, we did get a little bit of news 2 minutes ago. Just in case you were curious, Evan Fournier is available to play for the Knicks today.
Yeah, I was going to say that's about as useful to me as the college football news that I keep getting.
Yeah, I wonder if he let Tibbs know he was available.
Right.
So, lucky for us, we have now made our way through the 3 games that have totals right around 215 points, which is disgusting. Speaking of disgusting, the Detroit Pistons are 7.5 point underdogs in Indiana, 243 total. This is where business starts to pick up. 25% ownership projected to Cade on both DraftKings and FanDuel. 19 to Jaden Ivey on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Nobody else in double digits. I have slightly more on both of these guys.
I have slightly more on both of those guys too, and I also have slightly more of somebody that I really don't want. But
okay. Ooh, I want to guess that one first.
Okay.
You wouldn't say really don't want Asar Thompson. That would just be weird. Isaiah Livers?
Yep.
Yeah. Cause like Thompson or Beef Stew or Duran or something, you wouldn't totally freak out.
Yeah.
Livers is the one where it's just like, but flat 3K power forward, played 23 minutes. Like there's a path. He stinks.
And I don't mean I have like 50%. I have 14% Livers. He's 5%.
Okay.
But it was one where like I knew I had a lot of Cade. I knew I had a lot of Ivy, and I'm like looking down the rest of my Pistons. I'm like, okay, why the hell is Isaiah Livers third? But like he's 3K. We don't have value right now. He's projected for like 13 DraftKings points. It probably disappears by the time this game starts. But Cunningham and Ivy are clearly the priorities here. Assuming Jaden Ivey remains in the starting lineup, 5,100 for him is just too cheap. 7,800 for Cade Cunningham, also too cheap in a matchup with Indiana. Indiana's been one of the cheat code teams this year, one of the fastest teams in the league, one of the worst defensive teams in the league. I was tweeting quite a bit earlier about how people aren't giving Tyrese Halliburton enough credit, but the dude is terrible defensively, along with pretty much all of his teammates except for like Miles Turner. So they are dead last right now in defensive rating. They are first in pace. It's just a great spot for Detroit, and that's coming with favorable pricing on Cunningham, on Ivy. I'm getting to 57% Cunningham, 41% Ivy right now. The field is at 25% and 19 respectively. So I'm around 2x, a little over 2x, both of those guys. I'm not getting to a lot else. I mentioned Livers coming in 14%. I'm getting to 9% Asar Thompson at 6.5% owned. Like, cool, I'm a little over the field there. 6% Duran, 3% Stewart. I'm not going to be upset about any Detroit guys I get to because this game is so appealing. But Cunningham and Ivy are certainly the ones that really stand out.
I've got 52 of Cunningham, so we're pretty much the same there, and 64 of Jaden Ivey.
Yeah.
Ooh. I have a feeling based on the way that this is looking that they're going to end up like a little bit more owned than we see. Just feels like I'm getting funneled there. And I think that it's just going to it's just going to funnel everybody.
Yeah. I always feel like that when there's mid-range guys that are popular and I'm still getting a lot of, even factoring in their ownership, is I think a lot of people have relatively similar processes to me.
Yeah.
Especially a lot of people that are playing 150 lineups and kind of moving ownership on their own. So I think it's pretty likely those numbers come in a bit higher.
Yeah. So we'll see how that ends up looking in another hour and a half. Precious Achiuwa available to play today. Just want to make that known. And I'm the same as you. I've got 10% of Asar Thompson, 4 of Livers, 2 of Stewart, 3 of Duran. Like, I'm getting those guys. I don't mind rotating in any of them, but Ivy, if he's starting, and Cunningham just in general, stand out.
Yeah. And if Ivy goes back to the bench and Hayes starts, play Hayes, but he won't look quite as good as Ivy because he doesn't have shooting guard eligibility.
Yeah. And, I think Ivy is probably slightly better on a per minute basis.
Yeah, a little bit.
This is going to be nuts.
It is interesting. So, like,
We better
kinda
get
just
Ivy
half looked at it.
starting.
What?
We better get Ivy starting.
Yeah. I had half looked at it. I knew Livers closed last game. I didn't realize it was actually a competitive game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Bagley picked up. No, but he came in for Burks, who didn't have a foul. Yeah, I mean, they closed with Thompson, Ivy, Cunningham, Livers, and Stewart. I think that's a very reasonable closing lineup. Like, it's not always going to be the closing lineup, but
Yeah.
I don't think it doesn't stand out as like, oh, that's not going to happen very often.
I would expect them to close with Duren when Duren is healthy, but I don't know. That's the only caveat to that one. I don't know if they would pull Stewart and Duren, or like one of Stewart or Duren in those situations. But I don't know. They like Livers, and he just fits. Like he's one of those guys that is just going to work with a couple different outlooks. Detroit season, it is here now. Indiana. There's not really, we can really only talk about hypotheticals here, although there's still one thing that's very important for Indiana. But as of right now, Tyrese Halliburton questionable, Andrew Nembhard questionable, Aaron Nesmith questionable. Nesmith has missed the most recent game. Nembhard has been out for 3 games. Halliburton new to the injury report. If Buddy Hield is still starting, he is projected for 47% ownership on DraftKings, 63 on FanDuel. I have a bit more than 47. I'm going to guess you do too.
Of who?
Hield.
Oh, you said Hield?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 60.
Okay. I got 72. Assuming Buddy Hield is still in the starting lineup, no matter really what piece of news we get, I still think he's one of the best plays on today's slate.
It's just so hard to make a case for getting away from him other than, oh, he's popular. Like, can't play him, which we've talked about at length a lot. 21% chance of being optimal, 47% ownership. But yes, he's going over-owned in terms of optimal lineups, but you're not actually trying to make the true optimal lineup. It's never going to happen. And you have plenty of other roster spots that you can, also be different. So I'm getting to 60%. That's a bit over the field. He's about a fantasy point per minute guy. He's playing big minutes as a starter. It's not as good a matchup as the Pistons have, but it's still a solid enough matchup for Indiana. It's just very, very tough to get away from Hield at this price.
Now, all we can really do is talk about hypotheticals. If Halliburton is in and Nesmith and Nembhard are just out again, I don't think that we're really going crazy for anybody here. We're probably projecting Obi Toppin a little bit better, but I don't think that there's much trickle down to create like a bunch of new dudes.
Yeah, I mean, I have 12% Halliburton on DraftKings. So 2x on him. Very, very happy with that. He's a much better play on FanDuel. All of this, of course, assuming he plays. But he is $400 less expensive on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. So he's getting more ownership there. He just looks like a piece you're building around. On DraftKings, he's a good play for a different reason. And that reason is that he's Tyrese Halliburton at 6% owned. Yeah. About 1.6 DraftKings points per minute this season. Shooting like 46% from 3. 100th percentile in assist percentage. Just he's been the best offensive player in the NBA, slightly ahead of Jokic this year. And then there's just like a massive drop off from Halliburton, Jokic to everybody else. Just far and away one of the best offensive players in the league. So happy to get to him at low ownership, or in the case of FanDuel at a relatively inexpensive price tag. Getting the 7% Turner, which is right around the field, getting like a Bruce Brown lineup. But Hield's the very, very clear priority from Indiana because of that price, assuming he's still in the starting lineup. Halliburton, as a contrarian play on DraftKings, as a just solid play on FanDuel, looks good. And then, we are waiting on that other news. The Toppin Mathurin piece is really interesting to me if Nesmith and Nembhard are out.
Yeah.
We saw a ton of playing time for Toppin last game. I think played like 36, something like that.
36 and a half.
Yeah. There are going to be times where Mathurin is in the closing lineup. Mathurin only played 24 minutes in that game. So you're going to see some games where, Mathurin's the one playing 30 plus and Toppin's, at like 28, 30. But they're both going to look better if Nesmith and Nembhard are both out. I think the ownership would be really interesting. Like if a lot of the field is projected to go to Toppin and not Mathurin, it makes Mathurin a really interesting tournament play.
Let's say that Tyrese Halliburton is out. I think it's hard to just immediately say jam TJ McConnell, because we kind of need to know if Andrew Nembhard's playing at that point.
Yeah, we need the rest.
Obviously, he gets better.
Right.
Like, obviously, Halliburton.
He becomes playable.
Yeah.
He's 4,200. So, like, even as the backup, McConnell looks pretty good if Halliburton is out. If Halliburton is out and Nembhard is out and Nesmith is out. I still don't know if McConnell starts, but you're kind of running out of guys that it could be. Like obviously they could just go to Mathurin and like you have Bruce Brown running point, but
you're projecting him for what, 22, 24 minutes at a minimum at that point, right?
Right. And the thing to keep in mind with McConnell, we've seen it in the past. When he starts, he plays way more minutes than you're thinking TJ McConnell's going to play. Yeah. Like there's always a tendency, I think, to like think of somebody like McConnell who, is sort of borderline in the rotation when everybody's healthy. And, he's been around forever. And it's just like, oh, they're not going to like actually play him more than 24, 25 minutes. The dude plays like 35, 36 minutes when he starts. So if you were to get Halliburton, Nembhard, Nesmith all out and McConnell in the starting lineup, the guy is probably playing a ton of minutes.
Yeah. He's going to look 4,200 fantasy point per minute guy. He's going to look great if you can get him up over 20 minutes today. There's just, even if you just project him for 20 fantasy points, we're talking 4.8x and you're going to be projecting him well north of that if we lose all those dudes. It's really hard to hypothesize anything else there. That's really the only like talking point. We need to know if Halliburton's playing or not. By the way, Michael Jordan, clear-cut play every single day because he wouldn't have been load managing. I don't know what this dude is talking about right now. Grant Hill, John Stockton.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting dumber by the second.
No updates on Levine or Kobe White. Chat's about to tell us that they're game time decisions, but I'm about to tell you that there's been no updates on Zach Levine and Kobe White because that shit isn't a thing.
People asking about Thomas Bryant in chat. Bam Adebayo's back.
Yeah. Don't play him. That much I can tell you. Well, Indy, please give us some news soon. And to you guys, to the 1,400 people that are watching, over 100 likes, hit the like button, and then sign up for Vivid Picks. Get yourself some extra moolah. Link in the description or in chat. You click that link, you make a deposit. They're going to match that deposit up to $300. No reason to skip out on this sort of promo. If you're available to sign up for it, you should do it. Why wouldn't you want an extra $300 if you put 300 in? Give yourself the biggest bankroll you can give yourself. Oh, wait. The more money you have, the more it'll compound, the more you can make in the long run. You also get a $25 secure play, which means for that first card you put in, up to $25. If it wins, move forward, all that money's in your pocket. If it loses, you get that $25 back in site credit. Got to be 18 years of older, except for in Massachusetts, it's 21. Arizona's 21. Alabama and Nebraska is 19, I think. I think that's the acronyms for it. Be responsible. Call 1-800-GAMBLER if you've got a gambling problem. Use Odds Shopper if you need more plays for sites like Vivid Picks.
I really wanted to work a Josh Giddey joke in there.
We can't have that conversation. We can't have that conversation. I had that conversation with our producer a little bit earlier this morning. You were in the
one of the
room
I think Utah beat writers actually went there. I haven't looked in a while. I was expecting him to just immediately get pushed back, but he actually wasn't.
I think it's all gonna, like I said, I think it all just ends up going away.
Yeah, the Utah writer's take was that he doesn't think there's a lot the league can do.
Yeah, I don't think there is either. He's just like, people in the media are just going to dunk on it and bring up like every joke they can find for probably ever.
But also like what state it was could end up mattering.
Yep, absolutely. Mark Curry. Yes, I did make my awesome turkey gravy. It was as good as it usually is. Josh Giddey. That's good. That one hadn't hit me yet. That's the first I've seen it. I know you're stealing that, but that's good. All right, here we go. Your Washington Wizards are 11.5-point dogs in Milwaukee, 245. Wizards. 8% ownership to Poole and Gafford are the high marks. It's Poole and Kuzma on FanDuel, right around 15% ownership. So I've got scattered amounts of all these dudes for Washington. I don't have anybody just immediately jumping off the page.
Yeah, that's how I have it too. Should be a high scoring game. It's an appealing game to get to, but none of the prices really stand out. I'm getting to 9% Kuzma. I'm getting to 8% Jordan Poole. That's pretty much in line with the field. We have Poole projected to go a little bit under owned, but I'm right around the field. 5% Gafford, 3% Avdia, 2% Tyus Jones, who I was mentioning to you earlier. I did not realize how bad he's been this year. But
Yeah.
like I knew I hadn't been playing him in DFS ever, and nobody else had either. But didn't realize he'd actually just been terrible. But yeah, Poole and Kuzma, the guys that are showing up the most for me. Daniel Gafford, certainly in that same bucket with Mitchell Robinson as a $5,500 center that gives you block upside, and sometimes, like last game, will play 34 minutes.
Yeah, I've got Gafford, Denny, Poole, Shamit, and Tyus Jones, but nobody more than 5%.
Yeah, exactly. SMP said it right.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go. Fucking giddy. It'd be a great reason to be able to trade him, that's for sure. Just because I don't think he fits in for the Thunder's long-term goal. Like, this is the perfect opportunity to be like, all right, well, we're gonna move on. Yeah, if only. If only. This life gambler dude just doesn't stop. You ready to go to Milwaukee and talk about how much of a disaster this is about to become?
Yeah, this is gonna be, has the potential to be pretty ugly.
Yeah, so we have 35% ownership coming into Middleton, 20 to Giannis now. Do you remember what that was this morning?
14, I think.
Okay. I just remember, like, it was caught. I was getting a ton, and now I'm not. I'm just like matching the field.
When I wrote my article, it was 17.
Okay. 5% to Dame, 8% to Brook Lopez. But we also got the news just after you and I ended our show that Giannis Antetokounmpo is questionable. They also have their G League guys available. Not that matters, but like it's just more bodies. If Giannis plays, I think he's the best like natural pay up option that you can get to today. Your mileage may vary on Halliburton. He's just a little bit easier to get to than Jokic, which we talked about before. If Giannis doesn't play, it changes everything.
Yeah. So I actually have pretty similar amounts of Giannis, Halliburton, and Jokic on DraftKings.
Okay.
I'd have 14% Giannis, 12% Halliburton, and 11% Jokic if the slate started right now. I do agree Giannis should be the most popular, especially on DraftKings. On FanDuel, it's a lot closer between him and Halliburton because you do have the cheaper Halliburton salary. But he should be the most popular. Like he's a 1.5 to 1.6 fantasy point per minute guy with Damian Lillard. He's facing a Washington team that is Indiana-esque. They play at a very fast pace. They don't defend anybody. He looks very, very good. He is still expensive though, and you can still make some lineups that just look a little bit better. I think if you go a little bit more balanced, give up one of those, kind of questionable punt pieces, and then also you just have the fact that Jokic is 3% owned, Halliburton 6%. Like they look appealing too. But yeah, Giannis is the one. Like if I get to, I haven't built a cash lineup, but if I get to one of the top 3 guys in cash, I would fully expect it to be Giannis. And if you just told me, ownership and everything aside, which one do you want to play? The answer is also Giannis. But I am a little bit under the field on him right now at 14%. And that's just allowing me to get over the field on Jokic, over the field on Halliburton. And that's somewhere I'm perfectly happy being in top heavy 100K to first tournaments.
So I've got 16% of Giannis right now. The more interesting thing to me, and I don't know why it's really happening, but I guess I'm cool with it. Whatever Steph stand I had earlier today has now become Dame. I have 23% Dame.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And I like, yeah. Wait, what?
I don't mind it. I mean, I have 3, but
yeah, I don't really know what what's causing that to happen. There are way worse things to happen to me.
He's a much better play on FanDuel where he's 8,700.
Yeah, that price is stupid.
Yeah. I mean, it is relative. Like everybody on FanDuel is a little bit, or a lot of guys are a little bit cheaper, but he's getting 19% ownership on FanDuel. He's getting 5 on DraftKings. That's not your stand. I'm not getting there. I'm getting 3%, but like anytime you're getting 3-4x the field on Damian Lillard against Washington, like you're clearly not going to be too upset about that.
This lemon pepper stepper. Oh my God. What did you guys do yesterday to cause this today? It clearly says Giannis has been downgraded from probable. Completely agree. I completely agree. He was downgraded from probable to questionable, not doubtful, a word that does not show up in anything that you just said. I don't know how we do this. I really don't.
I would love to know what Life Gambler thinks the conversation was like during Jordan's flu game. Like, do you think he just showed up and was just like, oh yeah, I'm definitely playing tonight? Because pretty sure he was like puking on the bench at game time.
Let's also remember that was game 6 of the finals.
Right.
You're going to play through some shit. I think also, let's stop calling it the flu game. That man did not have the flu, and we all know that he did not have the flu. Yeah, so I've got Dame. I've got Brook Lopez, too, 17%. Slot in whatever center you want. What are we doing with Chris Middleton, who played a crisp 28.5 minutes this last time out? I do not have him projected for that. He is projected for 35% ownership, and I'm still getting it.
Yeah, I'm getting 53% right now. It's just, you and I talked about it a bit this morning. It's kind of tricky to nail down the actual minutes projection here, because I do think it's likely that since he played 28 last game, he's just, at the very least, that's his new minutes cap. We saw him at 22 for a while. At the very least, I think he's probably just at 27, 28 for a while. There's also a chance that it's just now, oh, he played, 33 minutes tonight. Now he's just like full go. So there is upside there, but then there is also, like you were pointing out, maybe that was partly influenced by the matchup, and you're just looking at like 25 minutes here against Washington, or 24 minutes. So I think a 25, 26-minute projection makes sense. But even at that projection, he just looks so good. Shooting guard, small forward, 5,700. I think he's 5,600 on FanDuel. Yeah, 5,600. Also shooting guard, small forward, getting 34% ownership there. It's just a very good value. His price tag has not adjusted quickly enough to him, at the very least, picking up 5 or 6 more minutes in his minutes limit.
He's going to play 22 minutes tonight.
He probably still gets there against Washington.
He might. That's really the thing. He's going to go from playing essentially the entire fourth quarter on the 22nd to 0 minutes in the fourth quarter because Milwaukee kicks the shit out of Washington. Or what do we do here with Chris Middleton if Giannis doesn't play?
If Giannis doesn't play, like, I think you still... So the thing is, like, Middleton's rates go up, and he's just going to look like an even better play if Giannis is out anyway. But if Giannis doesn't play, it does become more likely, in my head at least, that Middleton plays real minutes.
Yeah, I think you have to go to 28 if Giannis sits.
Right, because like I said, the way I'm viewing it is, and we've seen this before, where you get the very prolonged ramp up, but then it's not like a gradual one. It's just like jumps 5 minutes, he's not limited anymore. So there's already the chance that's happening.
Yeah.
If Giannis is out, like if that's the plan going into the game and Giannis is in, there's a higher chance that this game just ends up being a blowout. You don't get to see that anyway than if Giannis is out. So you're just increasing the likelihood of seeing what the actual limit is. And then there's also just the like, well, we were going to do it today or tomorrow, get him up to 34 minutes. Let's just do it today now because Giannis is out. Like he's clearly very, very close to just being back to full minutes. So I think you probably give him an extra minute or two if Giannis is out, but the rates are going to go up too, to where he just looks even better than he already does.
Yeah, I think if Giannis is out and I go to 28 minutes, he's going to end up in every single lineup I make because he's already halfway there at a much lower rate and a much lower minutes projection. Yeah, James Sarcone. I promise you, I love Michael Jordan. I was born in 1985, man. I watched him do all of the cool shit he did. He was awesome. The amount of times that I shot that Craig Elo shot in my backyard is countless. Dude's awesome. Just happen to think LeBron had a better career. That's all. How do you want to handle Bobby Portis? 6K. Obviously, this is a question for whether or not, or if Giannis is out. I'm not asking you what to do with Portis if he's in. Yeah, if Giannis is out, though, we're firing up a 6K Portis. He's playing 30 minutes, right?
Oh, yeah. He looks great. Like, if Giannis is out, Middleton becomes one of, if not the most popular plays on the slate. Dame becomes very popular. Portis becomes also one of, if not the most popular play on the slate, I would think. 6K, power forward center, good point per minute guy, good matchup. Facing a former team for whatever that's worth, it certainly doesn't hurt. But yeah, like Portis will look great if Giannis is out. You can't get to him at 6K if he's in.
No. Team's going to be very interesting. We need this news, folks. Anything else for Milwaukee?
I mean, Brook Lopez is fine. He's another Mitchell Robinson, Daniel Gafford.
Yep. Sacramento Kings, 4-point dogs in Minnesota, 229 total. Not a lot to read into here in terms of new news. For the Kings, we have no Keon Ellis, no Alex Len, no Keegan Murray, which is the big piece. We saw that last time out, so I'll have a little help here. 54% ownership coming into a $3,300 Trey Lyles. I have 40. This is a very unfun situation.
I have 79. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah. I went to 22 minutes, by the way, just for reference.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's what we have in that also. Yeah, we have.
And I don't even know if I like that either.
I kind of like 20 more, but you're still going to get him. The thing that I don't like about Lyles is, well, one, like he could play like 16 minutes.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't have to play a ton here. He's almost definitely not replicating what he did last game. He is a good enough point per minute guy. The center eligibility really scares me because there's a very good chance that he gives you a good point per dollar score, that exceeds 3,200, but that isn't enough raw points to really help you. And at 54% owned, like he's projected for 21 DraftKings points. So he's just going to show up in a ton of lineups that you build, and he's going to grade out as a great value. If he actually scores like 21, 22 DraftKings points, he most likely is hurting your lineup, even though that's like 7x. And then you also factor in that it's at center, and it's not the best center slate, but it's still center. It's still a lot of good point per minute guys. There's still a good chance that when you have 16 centers on a slate, 16 starting centers on a slate, a couple of them go for 40, 45, 50 DraftKings points, and you're just kind of dead if you used a spot on Trey Lyles in a lot of those cases. So again, I'm getting a lot of him. He's clearly one of the best point per dollar values. I don't like it, but I don't really know what to do about it.
I'm sitting on 40% right now, and I would really prefer that to stick around. But we get Indiana news that breaks wrong or Milwaukee news that breaks wrong, and Trey Lyles is just going to start looking a lot different. Bug Boy saying if you took LeBron and dropped him into 1989, we'd probably have a new religion. Popped me. I laughed hard at that.
Yeah, that was a good one.
That's so funny. That's so funny. I think LeBron would have been okay getting fouled by the guys in the NBA in the 90s, considering he's bigger than Michael Jordan.
Yeah, that whole argument is so absurd.
We got to stop acting like he's not a 6'9", 265-pound chiseled granite human being.
Like, people get very confused. Like, LeBron's complaining about fouls because he's getting fouled and he wants to shoot free throws, and he'd also prefer to just not be getting hacked. Like, that doesn't mean that he couldn't hang with guys fouling him when they're half his size.
Yeah, we got to stop acting like he's some wisp of a human being.
Yeah, whatever football players you're watching that you think are really tough, LeBron's bigger than them by a lot.
Yeah. Like, if you put him in the cage in a UFC event, people would be really surprised at what everybody else looked like when they stood next to him.
Right.
Real surprised. He's like John Jones.
Right. So that's he's way bigger than John Jones is what I was going to say.
Well, like John Jones now that he's up at heavyweight, but still weighs significantly more and is not cutting weight to do it or anything. Like, he's just shredded.
Right. They're both Google listing for whatever it's worth. They're both listed at 250.
Yeah.
LeBron has 5 inches on John Jones.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. He's a big dude. A big dude. Yeah. And look, it's not like Jordan. Not like Jordan's a little dude either.
Imagine questioning LeBron James' mental fortitude.
Yeah.
The dude is 39 years old and he's a top 10 NBA player currently.
Yeah. Amazing that he's been. It's craziness. It's craziness. Oh no, Bill Laimbeer would foul him. Come on, Malakar. What are we doing here? It's like telling Walker Kessler's going to foul him. All right, you ready to talk Golden State? Minnesota? This one's big. Here's the ownership numbers for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Giannis is playing.
Oh, thank God. I didn't want to deal with that.
Nope.
24% ownership to Edwards, 20 to Towns, 20 to Anderson, 10 to Conley, 20 to Reed, 15 to Alexander Walker and Gobert. I am over the field on Edwards, double on Towns, close to double on Anderson, triple or more on Naz Reid, double on Nickeil Alexander-Walker, more than double on Rudy Gobert. I have all of the Minnesota Timberwolves in everything.
Yep, pretty much the same for me. Some of that looks like I expected it to, some of it doesn't, but Naz Reid showing up 43% for me. He's 4,300 power forward center. It's nice you can play him at power forward. 18% ownership, so I'm a little over 2x there. I'm getting to 33% Gobert. He's 15% owned. good spot for him at only 6,900. I'm getting to 22% Anthony Edwards right around the field there. Happy about that just because I feel like I haven't gotten to play him much this year.
I wish he were lower owned. I'm so happy he's in a quarter of my shit.
Right. It's just fun to have him. Shooting guard, small forward is nice, 8,700. Kyle Anderson showing up 15% of the time. Alexander Walker showing up 14. Right in line with the field on Alexander Walker, a little under the field on Anderson, but still getting him. I'm only getting 9% Towns now. That's a little surprising to me. 21% ownership. I'm like half the field. I don't mind it. Like there's plenty of good players in that range that you can get to instead of him as a pivot in individual lineups, but he clearly looks very good. And I'm not suggesting that like the key to the slate is like not having Karl Anthony Towns.
Halliburton in.
Sweet.
Sorry,
Smith out. Nembhard in. Good.
Okay, perfect.
But yeah, anyway, like Towns is one of those to me where he looks like a very good play. I happen to not be getting as much as the field, but like you could tell me that you're not getting as much, somebody else that I'm getting, and it's not going to be a big argument. He clearly looks good.
I'm doubled up on Towns here.
Right.
How much Reed do you have?
43.
Okay. That's better than my 63.
How much Gobert did you have?
38.
Okay, so you have more of him also.
38 of Gobert at 15, 63 of Reed at 18, 43 of Towns at 21. I'm 2x the field on all three of the centers. I hope one of them gets in aggressive foul trouble. I guess I hope that's Gobert. I just want somebody to get more minutes. I don't want them to all play the correct game. Look, Minnesota looks fantastic. Sacramento's defense, not very good. Should be a relatively fast-paced game. Loving those prices on Edwards and Towns. And Jaden McDaniels being out. They're just concentrating this rotation. They're not really dipping into anything else.
Yeah, they're just all playing pretty big minutes. Conley was the only one last game that didn't of the main guys. And, you had 20 from Shake Milton off the bench, which some of that's most likely going back to Conley.
They're the best team on the slate, right?
In the aggregate, yeah, probably.
Okay. Well, let's keep it moving then. Like 2 more games to go, unless you have more here.
No, I was gonna say I feel like I'd probably rather if I could not roster anybody from the Bucks or anybody from the Wolves, I'd probably give up the Wolves, but they just have so many good plays.
The Spurs don't. They're 9.5-point dogs in Golden State, 235 total. And they have everybody available that's normally available. Highest owned guy is 5% to Keldon Johnson. I have 5% of Jeremy Sohan. Zach Collins, 6,300 power forward center on FanDuel is interesting. This team looks terrible.
Yeah, 3% Wemby is my highest owned guy on DraftKings. Field pretty much in the same boat. They're at 5% Keldon. I'm at 3%. So, very, 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 very tough team to get to. 112 point total is fine, but the team's healthy. None of their prices stand out as being very favorable. Zach Collins is basically the same price as Gobert. If you want to take the 10-1 ownership discount in a lineup here or there, great. Similar range of outcomes, but certainly a better median outcome for Gobert.
I have very little to say now about San Antonio. So let's go to Golden State, who's actually pulling a little bit of ownership. 18% coming into Chris Paul at 7,200, 15 to Clay at 6K, 6% coming into Steph at 9,700. I'm down to 10 there. I'd really like to just neutralize him and Dame and just be over on both, but that's neither here nor there. A little bit coming into Wiggins, nothing crazy. How are you handling Clay and Chris Paul? Because I have one of them and not the other.
Yeah, so right now I'm getting to 23% Chris Paul, 8% Steph on DraftKings. Paul, obviously, a bit cheaper. He's getting 18% ownership. Steph's at 6%. So I'm not too far off the field on either one. I think it's just a little bit easier to get to Paul at 2,500 less. I'm getting the 7% Clay on DraftKings. Fully expect to be getting to more of him on FanDuel, where he's like 5,400, 5,500. 6K shooting guard, small forward on DraftKings. He's been bad this year. I mentioned it this morning. The one thing, if you really if you're trying to make a case for Klay Thompson not being dust at this point, Kerr did talk about needing to get him different shots, and then he went out, scored 23 points with a 30% usage rate. Maybe whatever they changed worked, but either way, his salary is down just because he's been so bad this year.
I've got 15% of Clay, 10 of Steph, and I have 0 shares of Chris Paul right now.
You have 0 Chris Paul?
0. And I really don't know why.
Neither do I.
Point guard only. I think he's appropriately priced. I'm so concentrated on so many guys that like I think that era or like that area of salary is just getting completely ignored.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that.
Like I have 52% Cade.
Right. So that's what I was say. Like, I am concentrated on a lot of the same guys as you, and I'm still getting the ball. So that's the part that kind of confuses me.
Yeah, I really can't figure it out. Like I gave him 31 minutes. I think I have him, I've got him over a fantasy point per minute. He looks good, but something is stopping me from getting there. Thanks, Bug. Whoa, Bug Boy. What did you like rob somebody recently? Big time super chat. I hope he fat fingered that extra 9 or moved that decimal point. Big time super chat out of Bug Boy says, friendly reminder that Josh faded Evan Carter for 2 months straight. You paid $50 to say that. I should have just not read it on the stream. I fucked up. That would have been a lot cooler if I just ignored it, said thanks for the money, and just kept on going about my business. I appreciate that, though. I'm glad you're around, man. It's been good having you here. Would have been a lot cooler if I just pretended like you didn't do it. Just said thanks and moved on. You ready to close this out?
Yep.
New Orleans Pelicans, 5-point dogs in Los Angeles, taking on the Clippers. 7% ownership to Zion on DraftKings, 5 to Ingram. It's 20 and 11 to both guys. I basically don't have the Pelicans on DK.
Neither do I. Tough to get to. Just when it's nothing really about the Pels. Zion's fine, Ingram's fine at their respective salaries, but I'm just going to get to more Anthony Edwards than Brandon Ingram at basically the same price. I'm getting more Siakam than Zion. I'm getting I'm paying down at power forward a good amount. I'm getting to some Giannis, as is the field. So just tough to prioritize anything here. I have 5% Ingram, 2% Zion, and that's all that I have from the Pels.
Yeah.
If you wanted like a contrarian punt, that isn't like Trey Lyles or whatever other garbage we're getting, Caleb Martin, like Alvarado did get 18 minutes last game. He's 3,700, 2% owned, but still pretty tough to get to that one.
All righty. And then we close it out with the Clips. 227 total. Before we do that, though, I'm a little late on this read. Jacob, apologies here. But I do want to tip you guys off to Odds Shopper. It's not the only Black Friday deal we've got going on. The promo code is Black Friday, I think. It'll be on the screen in a little bit. Trust me on that one. Link in the description. On the sports betting side or the pick'em site side, this is what you're looking for. Prices have dropped as well, so you guys want to check that out, but you can get it for 50% off. We take a market-based approach to beating the books, so you can shop around for lines, find the best potential plays. We've got it outlined by bet percentages and expected win rates. You get all of this stuff for pick'em sites as well. Premium Discord available for you if you want it. Lots going on in the Odd Shopper streets. We've got the Odd Shopper YouTube channel as well. You guys should be following that channel, tailing my prize picks plays. You would be up quite a bit of money in this NBA season if you just did exactly what I told you to do every single night on prize picks, including tonight, by the way. Less than on Jordan Poole, more on Andrew Wiggins. You can get a little bit more, though, with Odd Shopper Premium. Use the promo code Black Friday for 50% off. All right, Clips. 10% to Kawhi, 8 to PG, 7 to James Harden. I have 16% Kawhi Leonard. That's a new one. Maybe that's why I'm not, another reason why I'm getting somebody like that and not Chris Paul, but I have no idea.
Nope, I have 15% Kawhi, so that can't be a reason.
Don't know what's going on there. Don't mind it. It's always fun to take Kawhi Leonard. Never get him in DFS. That just like basically never, ever, ever happens.
Yeah, I really don't have much. When he was on his own team by himself, being great, I still never got him. But
no, he's like the most consistent dude. Like there's never variance in his shit. He's like, oh, he had 25, 7 and 7 again at the proper salary.
Yep. But yeah, I'm getting 15% of him. Field at 10%, so I'm a little bit over there. 5% George, 2% Harden. I've 3% Daniel Tice, who's playing legitimate backup center minutes. He's 3,600. If like your requirement to pivoting away from Trey Lyles was like has to be a sub 4K center, Daniel Tice at 125th the ownership works, but clearly you're just going to get a lot more Lyles.
Yeah, they are not all that dissimilar in terms of like realistically. I would like to project Trey Lyles minutes more like Daniel Tice's minutes, but I just can't trust myself to do it.
Yeah.
And that's not fun. Yeah, there's just not a lot here. Look, it's weird. The final 2 games, San Antonio, Golden State, Pels, and Clips, are not all that interesting. Same for Miami, New York, Chicago, and Toronto. Is there a 4-game 8 o'clock slate? Because I bet that thing is cool as shit.
It's only 2K to first though.
That's a shame. That's the one, right?
Yeah, I was hoping we get a 5K to first, but
that is a great. That's where everything is. The 8 o'clock slate is the tits. They all start at the same time. What a fun slate to sweat. Well, you ready to get on out of here?
I hate Trey Lyles today, but he's going to be my highest owned player, I assume.
I really don't know what to do there.
I'm just looking at the rotations again. Like, he is so obviously going to play like 16 minutes.
Yeah. The interesting thing for me now is, does he become JaVale McGee? Or
if he becomes JaVale McGee, you're in trouble.
No. In terms of being the backup center to Domantas Sabonis instead of whoever whether it's Alex Len or JaVale or whatever.
I mean, that's pretty much what they did last game.
I'm wondering if they just simply excise JaVale like permanently.
So
I don't know if they're going to do that. They might want that spacing.
I don't know how much it matters. McGee played like 5 minutes last game. Only 2 minutes and 57 seconds were without Lyles on the floor.
Okay. Yeah, even still though, that's big minutes for Trey Lyles if you want to lock in an extra 2.5.
Yeah.
Bilal Coulibaly out. Zach LaVine available. Kobe White available. Good. The NBA gods are blessing us with not a lot of bullshit. So, I shouldn't have said that, should I?
Nope. Coulibaly doesn't really matter on this slate, I don't think.
No, it probably makes like Corey Kispert be a more interesting value
player. Yeah, but
player.
He's 4,700 anyway. Shamit's 3,400.
Never mind. Shamit probably becomes a better value option.
Avdia looks marginally better, I guess.
Yeah. Well, NBA Live Before Lock will tell you about it. Adam and I are going to get on out of here. Enjoy your weekend, everybody. He and I will be back he'll be back tomorrow talking basketball, right? Yeah, I will not. I'll see you guys Sunday morning. Peace.
What is happening, everybody? It is Friday night. We had Thanksgiving yesterday. We got the weekend starting tomorrow. But first, bring us into the weekend. We got a Friday NBA DFS slate. We've got 8 games. We've got the in-season tournament happening. I got Matt Belman joining me. And all we're going to ask from you guys as you watch the show is to like the video and to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're sponsored by Vivid. We'll talk more about them as we go here. And Jacob, don't worry, take your bathroom break. You can go ahead. You don't have to keep teasing the bathroom break to us. Go take your piss, man. I know you've been sitting here for a long time. Go use the bathroom. All right, there he goes. Picked up his hall pass. Jacob wanted to get the show going so he could take his bathroom break, and then he was sitting here. But okay, we got all that taken care of. I hope you guys had a really great Thanksgiving. We're about to be breaking down the NBA slate, which I guess a little bit of a Black Friday deal for us, Matt. Everybody's playing. This almost never happens. What's the deal with this?
No idea, especially on a Friday night, but it is nice for us to be able to talk about it at least.
Yeah, so if we go ahead and look at one of the things that I do when I'm preparing for the show is I make a list of all the injuries and I start to think about like, all right, what are the different situations that could happen here? You know, if these guys are ruled in, if these guys are ruled out, what are the potential value plays? How is it going to impact the slate? If a guy's ruled in, 15 minutes before lock, what kind of difference is that going to make? And we had all these players, like key names around the injury report, Tyrese Halliburton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Zach LaVine, and these guys were all locking in some of the early games on the slate. So I was like, boy, this could be one of these great slates where we get a lot of value that breaks, right before it starts. And then they'll get ruled in, which is unprecedented. This kind of thing never happens. So I'm wondering with these players that have just been ruled in, the key ones, LaVine, Halliburton, Giannis, do you have any concerns with any of them being limited any sort of way?
Nah, not really. I mean, only LaVine has missed a game with this injury, I believe. And he was present. He only missed one game. So no, that is not something I'm concerned about here. It is weird that like we saw a bunch of midday downgrades and they're all in, but they're all in. So no, for me, no. How about you?
Yeah, not really. And, a lot of these teams too, like particularly Giannis, zero chance they're playing him unless he's 100%. I mean, we've already seen that with this team this year, especially with Damian Lillard. We're like, hey, we're cautious of him. They had him sit out games. When he came back, they had him play limited minutes. So Giannis wouldn't be playing if he wasn't totally good to go. At least that's how I'm reading the situation. And then as far as Zach LaVine and Kobe White go, yeah, I mean, they were midday downgrades, but they're both in now. And we have seen the Bulls also be, kind of cautious. Some of their guys this year, we've seen them take days off. And then as for Halliburton as well, he's been so key to the Pacers that I also assume with him, they let him miss a bunch of games last year. They wouldn't have him out there unless he was totally good to go. And Halliburton's just been insane this year. I posted some of his EPM numbers so far this year. And I don't know how often you look at dunks and threes and EPM type stuff, Matt, but it's not the end all be all, but I do find it to be one of the more valuable kind of like catch-all stats to just get a feel for like, all right, how are these guys looking in terms of like their overall value to open up the year? Halliburton 4th in the NBA in EPM, even though he's absolute dog shit on defense. He's a 9th percentile defender this year, but since he is rated as the #1 offensive player in the league, the only player, and by the way, him and Jokic are like tied 1 and 2, and then there's a massive drop-off where he gets anybody else, and that's Luka, who's 3rd. So, 4th in the league overall in EPM this year. Halliburton's been ridiculous. And I really do think, particularly in a matchup against the Pistons, who are terrible. Like, I mean, we saw Jokic play against the Pistons and almost seemingly purposely get ejected because he just couldn't be bothered to play against them. So I think Halliburton should be good to go as well. And
I will say this. It's funny you talk about Halliburton because this is a long story short. So at the beginning of the season, I had bet on Memphis a few times. Realized quickly that was a mistake, but in the process, I'd be salty after the game. So I was listening to the post-game press conferences and started following like one of the Grizzlies beat writers. A couple weeks ago, ESPN had like an under 25 ranking or an under whatever age ranking. And they had Halliburton like right below Ja Morant. And the Memphis guys were going crazy. No way Halliburton's in the same stratosphere as Morant, on and on and on. And I'm like, not so fast. Like, why isn't Halliburton in that class, if not even more valuable right now? I'm not going to say better because I do think at their ultimate upsides, Morant is better. I don't know if better is the word, is slightly more valuable, but he's not on the court. And it's just funny to me, like the national narrative, just the national media doesn't really know much about Halliburton. It's funny.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that now he's somebody who kind of has to be on the map. He's putting up all these games with 30-plus points, 15 assists, and going to be in today. And somebody who, at least as of right now, actually I'm overweight to the field too. But let's go ahead and look at some of the questions that we're getting in super chat, starting with, almost always the first super chat that we have in here is from Ace of Spade, but Bugboy 3.0 does have a friendly reminder here that Josh faded Evan Carter for 2 months straight. Now it's funny because Bugboy, actually, I believe the super chat was left for the last show, but I know that he's gotten on you about Evan Carter as well. So it seems like he gives Josh shit about Evan Carter as well.
Yeah, it was me and Josh doing the shows over the summer in baseball. And it's like neither of us even, it's just so funny. It's got to be just a joke from at this point because neither of us even hated a little bit on Evan Carter. He just wasn't a cash play hitting ninth in like his third game. I don't even think he was 2K, but even if he was hitting ninth at home.
Yeah, so Bug Boy, always the reminders, shows up, I'd say like every 3 Fridays or so, just to remind Matt that he didn't like Evan Carter during the baseball season. And Bug Boy, we appreciate the super chats and the reminders. And then Ace of Spade, leaving his normal super chat, wants to know the best options for DK tiers. And I've got you covered here, Ace of Spade. I've got DK tiers lineups built out right here. Some of the tiers, much easier to figure than the other ones. Like tier 1, Nikola Jokic is in it. And when you have the option, not salary related, you don't have to worry about salary and DK tiers, just like Jokic or anybody else. Yeah, it's going to be Jokic for me. So tier 1, which also going back to Tyrese Halliburton now in tier 1, Matt, he's in the same class as these guys. Tier 1 is Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Tyrese Halliburton. The answer is still Jokic, but interesting that he's at least there. Tier 2, we have Domantas Sabonis, Steph Curry, Paul George, De'Aaron Fox, and Wemby. And of those, I'm going to go with Steph Curry in tier 2. Tier 3, my favorite option is Damian Lillard, and this one's closer than some of the other tiers, and this would have been easily Dame if Giannis was ruled out. But even with Giannis in, I'm good with Dame in tier 3. Tier 4, that is Karl Anthony Towns for me. I'm getting a smattering of Timberwolves exposure today. Karl Anthony Towns, definitely somebody I like. Tier 5, another one. Some really, really close options. Cade Cunningham, Alperen Şengün, Kawhi Leonard towards the top. I like Kawhi the most of those guys. And we have seen the Clippers offense look infinitely better since moving Russell Westbrook to the bench. So give me Kawhi there in tier 5. And now tier 6, I got to go with Chris Paul. And hey, hopefully he doesn't go out and get himself ejected tonight, which people were very tilted about on Twitter the other day. Some more questions coming into the super chats here. If you guys have any questions for us in the Discord channel, also add us and we'll answer those. One of the perks of being a Stochastic member is you do get into our Discord channel and got a bunch of Black Friday deals going on right now. We'll talk more about that over the course of the show, but this really is the time to sign up for Stochastic or for Odd Chopper because 50% off our memberships at the moment. But Bat Jones 22 wants to know thoughts on the min price Kevin S tonight without any injuries. Dude, I know we come in, we talk about Kevin S on a lot of these shows and a lot of these slates, and there's not a lot of value today, right? So maybe this is the time, Bat Jones, that we go to the Kevin S play. J187 DFS is asking us, by the way, was that the just making sure I'm not missing out? That was the troll Kevin, because sometimes we get troll questions about value plays, and sometimes it'll actually be a real player that I forget about exists, but I'm pretty sure there's nobody I can think of that's Kevin S that's viable on the slate, correct?
I'm racking my brain, so I was like a little confused at first, and then I picked up on it. So no, you're definitely right. There's no Kevin S's.
Yeah, I can't remember. There was one where Eric and I riffed about how funny we thought a super chat was, and the guy was like, "No, I meant this player was just like a typo." So, but yeah, maybe this could be the Kevin S slate. No real value. Everybody ended up in. Could be the time to go to Kevin S. And then J187. So we got our guy Jason here saying, had a damn good week in NFL, just showing some love to my coworkers. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Yeah, I saw Jason crushed in NFL last night. If I remember correctly, Jason, you came in first in the $5 flea flicker. I saw you in that, and maybe like the third in that also, and also took down some other contests. So always good to see one of our guys, Jason, who's been helping out with the data team and has been doing a really good job helping us out, especially with some stuff like, MMA and some of the other sports, of course, involved in the major sports as well, but helping across the board is Jason J187, also somebody who's frequently in our Discord channel and answering people's questions throughout the day. So congrats on the success you had yesterday. Love to see the takedowns. And then a super chat from James Magruder wants to know who are our best plays at each position. And James is usually asking us from a DK perspective. And are you playing on DraftKings, FanDuel, both tonight, Matt? Where are you getting your action?
Just DK.
Okay. So it's funny. I have lineups built out for both, but I'm actually only playing on FanDuel. So one thing that's funny about this slate, is when I was building lineups, reserving before I'm looking at the injury report. And typically when I'm hosting live before lock, I try to choose one site to play on because Eric Lindquist, who frequently plays on both sites, then fucks up his lineups and is panicking right before. I don't want to be an idiot like him. So I try to pick one site to play on when I'm hosting live before lock. And today I thought, especially, there's no way that I'm going to be able to enter lineups and update with all the players who are on the injury report for both. If we would have known these were the injury reports going, and I actually probably would have just entered on both because I don't think there's going to be anything too crazy that would make me like scramble to update lineups. But that aside, since I'm playing on FanDuel today, you're playing on DraftKings. How about you give out your favorite players by position on DK, and I'll do it for FanDuel. So starting with point guard, Matt, who's your overall favorite point guard play on DK?
Cade Cunningham.
Okay. For me on FanDuel is Cade Cunningham. And a big thing about this too is, I mean, these Pacers games, and we were talking before
Yeah,
how
I was going to say about Halliburton. He's in the perfect DFS spot because he's amazing offensively, but they're so bad defensively, and they play at such a fast pace that it like breeds DFS points. So I was just going to say that earlier. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Here's a question. What do you think? It actually doesn't even have the highest total this slate, second highest total, but like there's never going to be a Pacers game that doesn't have one of the highest totals on the slate. And just going to ask you guys, by the way, we're both answering Cade Cunningham. Matt on DK, I'm answering Cade Cunningham on FanDuel as well. What do you think will be the highest total in any Pacers game this year?
After that last game, I could see, I could see a total be like approaching the 260s. I don't think you'll get much higher than that, to be honest, but it depends because in the game that was the 250 or whatever against Atlanta, they blew over it like by 30 points. If that happens a couple more times, then I think you'll already see in the 260s, but I don't expect that to happen.
Yeah, I think that game had the highest. So that game had the highest total since sports betting became legal. And it was the highest total like overall in something like 30 years or something like that. And they smashed it. The total, I think, closed to, you mentioned there, but like 252 and a half, maybe 253 or something like that. And it was over at like halftime. You knew it was going to surpass the total in that spot. And so for tonight, we've got 243 and a half. I'll agree with you. I'm going to say there's going to be some game like the next time they play the Wizards. I haven't checked the schedule to see when they play next. I'm going to say they hang like a 260 total, something like totally absurd for that spot. Anyway, Cade Cunningham, that is the answer for both of us at point guard. Shooting guard, who's your favorite DK play at shooting guard?
Shooting guard's a little murkier. A lot of dual position eligible guys. Such a good matchup. Probably say Chris Middleton here. I don't love the shooting guard position. I am worried about the Bucks Wizards game, and I'm not someone who hardly ever plays for blowouts. In my opinion, like blowouts in the NBA can happen in any game. The spread will just tell you which side is likelier to blow out. So I don't think that like this game has any more of a chance to blow out than like a spread with a pick'em spread game. But in this situation, I'm really worried. You've got Milwaukee coming off that loss to Boston, the Wizards coming off that awful loss in Charlotte. The Bucks like want to win games. The Wizards clearly don't care. So I'm worried about this game getting out of hand. That said, players from Milwaukee are going to have to succeed for that to happen. So give me Middleton here. Long story.
Yeah, so for me at shooting guard, it is so hard to get away from Buddy Hield on FanDuel. Like, I know that he's massively popular, but $5K is a broken price tag for him, especially because one of the only players that ended up getting ruled out when we had a bunch of players who were listed questionable coming into like the start of the shows. We had Aaron Nesmith ruled out. So that's going to give Buddy Hield minute security that he already seems to have. I mean, he started and played 35 and 31 minutes the last two games. He's been priced up a little bit more on DK and FanDuel, only $5K on FanDuel for Buddy Hield with shooting guard and small forward eligibility. He's got to be my answer there at shooting guard. Small forward, what are you going with on DK? Favorite option for small forward DK?
I think Buddy Hield's the safest, but my favorite is Scotty Barnes. I wrote him up today, and I've heard Adam speak on this a bunch. Like, projections aren't sure what to do with him yet because he's made such a huge leap this year that, projections aren't going to incorporate that as much as they are like his past two seasons. That said, like, he's a prime candidate to take a huge jump this year. I'm a believer in it. So I'm willing to spend up a little bit to be contrarian when not many people are. So give me Scotty Barnes there.
So definitely a little bit of concern with Chris Middleton's minutes. I know you mentioned before, like, hey, blowouts, they get a little overrated in NBA. You never know when there could be a game that's competitive, when it's not supposed to be, and vice versa. Sometimes weird underdogs end up winning games outright. Like we saw the Magic blow out the Celtics earlier today. And the Celtics have been like the best team in the league by a mile so far this year. So my answer here is going to be Chris Middleton at small forward. I do have a little bit of concern here with the fact that like they just started ramping up his minutes. So Middleton, who's been on a really strict minutes limit the entire year, but you knew eventually they were going to start to ramp him up. And it happened really quick. He went from 20 minutes all the way to 29 in the last game. And now you start to look like, all right, Middleton's basically playing full minutes now, but hasn't been priced up for it on FanDuel, where he's only $5,600 and really good position eligibility. The problem is, if this game is like 15 points in the fourth quarter, he's the first player that comes off. But I'm going to have to answer Middleton here.
That's true. But the counter of that is like Giannis is so expensive that even if they blow out, you almost need him to play all those minutes. Middleton can get there even if he doesn't play like his full allotment today, which, who knows how high that is. And sure, Giannis can get there too in 25 minutes, but it's harder when you're 11K.
Yeah, so I mean, either way, he was my answer for favorite small forward play. Like if you're playing cash games on FanDuel, blowout risk aside, you still have to play Middleton. He's going to be popular. He's one of the best points per dollar plays on the slate. Now let's hit up power forward, where not quite as many obvious plays, at least not on FanDuel. DraftKings, there are some interesting discussion points once you get to the front court with Trey Lyles and whatnot. But power forward, who's your favorite DK option?
Give me Karl Anthony Towns. He's just not priced right. And FanDuel pricing is a lot softer. So I don't know if he's the answer there. But on DK, he's just outproducing his $8,400 tag. He's not the Karl Anthony of Towns of old, like without Anthony Edwards, but he's still really, really good. So give me Cat at 8,400.
I'm going to be going with my arch nemesis, Jimmy Butler, only $8,400 over on FanDuel. And we've seen bigger usage from Jimmy as of late. To open up the year, the usage wasn't really there. Now we have seen a little bit of a change because Tyler Hero's been out. But even when Hero was first out, we weren't really seeing massive usage games out of Jimmy Butler. However, that seems like it's starting to change. So last game, maybe a little bit of an outlier because they won the game 129-96. There wasn't really a need for Butler to force himself. But listen to his usage rates in the game before that, Matt. 26.2, 30%, 38%, 32% usage. And this is one guy, a lot of the players that I've mentioned so far have been really popular. Jimmy Butler less so. He's projected for 14% ownership on FanDuel. So this is not like a massive chalk option here. I like getting to Jimmy Butler. Overweight to the field at power forward is my favorite option. Who's your favorite guy to go to at center on DK?
This is ugly, but it's Trey Lyles. Like, I don't love the center position tonight. I would love to say Jokic. Like, clearly, if you can make it work, it's Jokic. But it's really hard to make that work. So at 3,300, maybe his minutes are a little more volatile than we expect. But these chalk plays in the NBA, now you do have to like identify if you think it's bad chalk, and it's certainly not like the greatest chalk in the world, but he's so cheap that it's unlikely to kill you. So give me Trey Lyles and I'll duck.
Yeah, so for me, my favorite pay-up option, and once again, not somebody who's really all that popular. I think a lot of people know where I like to go at the center position where possible. Jokic is projected for 9% ownership on FanDuel. He is super, super expensive at $12,500. But we've got all these other underpriced guys, like we talked about Buddy Hield, we talked about Chris Middleton, and these guys are underpriced. I understand they're also going to be really popular. Jokic, I don't find him all that difficult to get up to. I mean, he's in 43% of my FanDuel lineups right now at only 9% projected ownership. Whenever I get Jokic at fairly low ownership and there isn't like a massive opportunity cost, it's different if you have like min price centers, like a Thomas Bryant the other day. It's right. Like a can't miss kind of spot. Then I might feel differently on a slate that Jokic is on. But on one today where the center exposure is pretty spread out, he's single digit owned. There's a lot of value where it's not all that hard to get up to him and the value isn't at center. Give me Nikola Jokic. He's my favorite spend up option for FanDuel. Now I'm going to ask you for DraftKings. I know it's not exactly related to James Magruder's question, but who's your favorite pay up option overall on DK, or do you prefer more balanced builds?
Prefer more balanced builds just because I think it's easier to get to those guys on FanDuel, where on DraftKings, it's just everyone seems to be priced up a little bit. If I had to pick one, man, I think it's either Jokic or Halliburton. I like that they're both much lower owned than Giannis, so it draws me to them. Again, I don't think there's as much opportunity cost today at center as there usually is. So give me Jokic, even though he's damn hard to get to, close to 13K.
All right, now let's go ahead and look at the Discord chat and start answering some of those questions. And also, if you guys haven't done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also, as we start to talk about some of the member questions that we have in Discord, don't forget about our Black Friday promos, where right now, if you guys sign up to our NBA, and it works for the NFL package as well. But if you're signing up for the first time and use the promo code SIMS, SIMS, all capital letters, you are going to get 50% off the first time you sign up. So it's a great discount offer. It's available here for Black Friday. And I know we just ran the Millie promo, and it was one that at the time we really did think it was going to be the last Sims discount that we were going to run for the entire year. But then Black Friday ran around and we were talking about it. We said, let's do one more. But I wanted to really make sure that anybody who signed up last week didn't feel like they missed out on getting a better discount. So if you did sign up for that Millie promo, you're going to get emailed a coupon with the Millie promo in it. So when your current subscription expires, you could re-up and get that 50% off. But if you're new to the game, haven't checked out our Sims at Stokastic.com yet, and this offer, like I said, it's good for the NBA or the NFL package, which includes everything. Sign up using the link below, promo code SIMS, and you're going to get 50% off when you sign up for the first time. Let's dive into the Discord. I see we've got a couple questions in here. And if you guys have any more for us, throw them in. First from Einsteinium says, hope you and Matt enjoyed your Thanksgiving, and then wants to know how we feel about Azur Thompson tonight. And what should be another track meet. Yeah, like every Pacers game is a track meet. But first, I did enjoy my Thanksgiving. What did you do for Thanksgiving, Matt?
Well, my sister and her husband and kid came into town, but unfortunately we could not see them because I'm like pretty much all fine from COVID, but still, she's pregnant, so couldn't be around them. So me, my wife, and daughter just did our own little thing, the Three Musketeers with our dog. So I guess you can say the Four Musketeers, although the dog is really getting on my nerves right now.
I think I've seen out of the corner of my eye, because your door's like a little bit ajar. I think I've seen your dog walking back and forth a little bit.
Tonight would be the night because the baby's asleep and my wife went out to dinner, so the dog doesn't know what to do. So yeah, but she won't start barking, hopefully.
So for me, I had everybody come over to my house, and most of everybody's still here. But I mean, I've got the whole gang here. So like I've got brother-in-law, not brother-in-law, actual brother. So brother, sister-in-law, other brother, my actual sister, grandma here, parents here. We had packed house, ton of food, 2 refrigerators totally full here. So it was a good time. And my grandma was hilarious. She was on her game, not intentionally, but unintentionally was hilarious. Like we were trying to explain to her how people sell feet pics online. And this was her reaction to this is she hears that people sell feet pics. First, she's like, why would anybody buy them? And then she stops. She goes, but if you're selling them, why feet? Wouldn't you get money for other body parts? Which was a hilarious response from my grandma that I was not expecting. We're trying to explain feet pics to her. So good time here. And everybody's still hanging out at the house, and looking forward to hanging out with them post NBA show here as well. So hopefully we don't get like a ton of players ruled out and there's a bunch of late scratches where I have to move stuff around. But
that's what I was going to say earlier when you were talking about how you would have played both sites because we got all the news. And I would just say, like, with NBA, you just never know, right? Like, because one guy being out or, potentially being out, just the domino effect is so real in NBA DFS.
And so I know what Einstein just, wished us happy Thanksgiving, wanted to know how we did, but he also wanted to know what we feel about Azur Thompson, which I think was really the most important part of his question here. So as far as Azur Thompson goes, is he somebody you like getting to today?
I think he's fine. I don't think he's a priority. As much as we want to pick guys in this great matchup, like he's priced up on DK. He's 6,800. I think there's other guys in his price point that I would probably rather get to, but I don't think he's like a bad play. We have him projected for 34, like about 35 DraftKings points. I mean, you'll certainly take that, or no, 33, yeah. 33 and a half, close to that. So I'm fine with it. Not a priority. How about you?
Yeah. So not a priority for me. And also, how Matt and I play is different, right? Like Matt plays a lot of the high stakes single entry, and I'm somebody who plays a lot of the 150 max stuff. So what Matt is looking at is probably actually a lot more relevant to how a lot of you guys are playing that are listening to the chat in terms of just, building out a few lineups. And so if I was only playing like one single entry lineup or 1, 2, 3 lineups, Azur Thompson would not be in it, like no chance. Right. But for me, over the course of 150 lineups, I do get overweight to the field to him on FanDuel. And even though I'm only playing on FanDuel, I did build out lineups for DraftKings as well, going through the Sims, my entire process of what I do. And I do come in a little bit overweight to field him, like nothing significant. He's projected for 6% ownership on DK, 5% on FanDuel, and I'm around 10% on both sites on him. So he's somebody who I like getting overweight to the field too, particularly because of how heavily I'm targeting this game. It's an environment that I want a lot of exposure to, but he's not like my favorite option to get to from this game on either side.
Yeah, I'm with that. And if I were multi-entering and playing 150, I'd probably have around 10%. And speaking of that, I'm going to bitch for 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I almost always play just high dollar single entry stuff, 3 max stuff. But today for the NFL Showdown slate, I'm not sure how it happened, but like I was looking at the contest, I reserved a couple in the big 15, but then I was busy doing some writing. And when I went to look back, like everything was filled except for that big 15 really. So I decided, okay, I'm just going to, I think I played like 20 lineups and I was on the tools and using that stuff because I had some time, but I still had like the one lineup I was going to make and I built it out and I played all of them just in the $15. Of course, that one lineup was like, it finished 80, it finished top 100 in the 15. So like, obviously it would have done very well in single entry stuff. That's DFS though. Like it feels better for me. It's cathartic for me to talk about it. I'm sure you've been in similar situations and it's just, that's the nature of the beast.
One thing that is kind of funny. So by the way, also like, cause like most of my action is on the, 150 max type stuff,
Right.
But I'll very frequently play on DraftKings, like the $100 single entry, the $40 and like all of that stuff. One thing that really used to bother me is when I had a lineup that scored like super, super well in the big cons, be like, oh, why didn't I play this one in the single entry? But now I'm just kind of like, whatever, it happened. Like there's going to be times all the time where it's like, oh, I played my best projected lineup in the single entry, and like my second best projected lineup scored like a gazillion more fantasy points to it. And now just kind of get used to it. But I understand your pain where it's like, oh, one of these lineups I ended up playing just crushed. And you could convince yourself it's the one that you definitely would have played when you don't even know if that would have been the case.
Of course, hindsight's always 2020. Like I do not know for a fact that that's the case because it was a couple hours before. So yeah, I'm sitting here now saying I definitely would have played it. But of course, if that lineup didn't do well, I wouldn't be sitting here saying, of course, I would have played it. So you're absolutely right. I needed that.
Some more questions in here, and this is coming to us from, oh, here we go, refresh. I actually got a handful of ones that both came in here. Capanicella wants to know from us, who is the one guy that we would both play in a DK single entry? So who's somebody that you might prioritize in a single entry, Matt, that maybe isn't as high of a priority in a large field tournament, or maybe just somebody you prioritize in both?
Well, it's kind of 6 and 1, 6 and 1, half a dozen the other for me, because a guy that I would play in single entry is someone I'd really want to be overweight on if I were multi-entry. So my answer there is going to be Scotty Barnes. I really, really like him as a differentiator in single entry tournaments. I like getting over the field in large field. It's risky. He's expensive, but I just went over it. Like I'm a believer in his production. He's filling up the box scores every night. So give me Scotty Barnes as that guy.
I'm going to give you an answer that I think might really upset people. I think it might be Jordan Poole time. I'm overweight to the field to him, like pretty significantly on FanDuel. And then also he's in my top projected lineup on DraftKings. So if I was playing single entry on DraftKings tonight, Jordan Poole would be in that lineup. He's $6,500 on FanDuel. He's $6,800 on DraftKings, projected for single digit ownership. And it has not been a pretty start to the year for Jordan Poole, not for a fantasy perspective, not from a real life perspective. And one thing that was weird about the start to his season is once he got off to kind of a poor shooting start, we saw him stop shooting. I didn't even know that was possible for Jordan Poole to not carry a massive usage rate. Last handful of games for Jordan Poole, 32.6% usage last game against Charlotte, 38% usage of the game before against Milwaukee, and then before that 28.5% against the Knicks, 30.9% against Dallas. I think we've reached the floor for Jordan Poole. And considering he started to take the amount of shots I thought he was going to coming into the year, I believe we're about to see some really big scoring performances from Jordan Poole. It's not going to be efficient, but the volume is going to be there to the point where I think there's a lot of scoring upside. Now, once again, on the road against Milwaukee, double-digit spread, there is some blowout risk there. For tournaments, I don't really care all that much about it. I care more about the upside, and I think Jordan Poole has that upside today, and I think it's going to look really silly a couple months from now to look back and be like, wait, Jordan Poole was like $6,500.
I'm with that, and I'm also with that. Like for tournaments, you don't care really about the blowout risk. All it's doing is bringing down his ownership. And the flip side of that is if Washington stays in this game, it's likely that Kuzma and Poole play really well because those are the guys that can keep them in games. I love how high he's grading out on a leverage perspective on DK also. Like he's projected to be optimal close to 15% of the time, only getting 8% ownership. I love plays like that when you can get like guys in the mid tier that have upside that the field just isn't going to.
Next question that we have in here is from Jets World. He wants to know, is Duren on a minutes limit today? And if he is he a good player or not? I have a couple lineups with Duren. I have no clue what to expect from his minutes. And there's clearly upside here, right? We've got that same matchup against the Pacers. There's a really high total. We know how good of a fantasy producer Duren's been, but he's hurt his ankle multiple times this year. I would be really surprised if he comes out and plays like 34, 36 minutes in his first game back. So I would say probably like a light minutes restriction. There's been nothing definitive about this is how many minutes that he's going to play, but he's not somebody that I'm getting to outside of like a couple lineups as a last man in sort of situation.
I'm with you there. Like he's a guy that has missed multiple games. Detroit stinks. He's one of their like pillars. I doubt he's going to play like massive minutes. That said, he can still crush in this spot. So if you were 5,600, I'd be a lot more interested. I know you could say that about a lot of guys, but he didn't get really a price decrease from being hurt.
Correct. Which we often see. Players miss a week or two, come back, and even if they have a light minutes restriction, maybe they could be in play because they might be like $1,000 or $2,000 less expensive. That's not the case here with Duren. So not somebody, Jets World, if you're playing like just a line, because I know Jets World usually asks about the 5.55 on DK. I wouldn't play Duren in that contest. Mr. Cool Cam wants to know my favorite 3 players for FanDuel single entry. Yes. So 2 chalk players that I like today are Buddy Hield and Chris Middleton. A contrarian player I like on FanDuel for single entry, Nikola Jokic at single digit ownership as a way to differentiate that lineup. Rocky Raccoon 7. He is hanging Christmas lights for his girl's Grinchmas birthday party. I don't know what any of that means. What is a Grinchmas Christmas party? Like there's like close to Christmas. I mean, we're still a month out from Christmas. Why do you do a Christmas themed birthday party a month before Christmas? You're going to have Christmas a month from now. Why are you doing Christmas themed party before this? I know. But then in parentheses, he says, fuck me. I know. So, all right. He seems fairly disappointed about it. And then he says he hasn't had time to look at the slate. What are our favorite tournament plays on FanDuel outside of Jokic? And what are the big news pieces we're waiting on? There are really no big news pieces as of right now. I mean, like if somebody, like maybe a weird starting lineup drops, but we've kind of gotten all the stuff we need. There's nothing I'm waiting on. How about yourself, Matt?
No, again, doesn't mean that like something won't come out, but nothing that we're waiting for as far as questionable or anything like that. No.
And then favorite tournament plays on FanDuel outside of Jokic. So yeah, I think everybody knows the chalk plays that I like by now, but the contrarian guys I like, Jokic is one of them. Jordan Poole is another one who's not all that popular. I like getting overweight to the field too. My arch nemesis, Jimmy Butler. I like getting overweight to the field too on FanDuel. He's projected for modest ownership with small forward and power forward eligibility, $8,400. Let's see. I'll try to find one more. It's like fairly modestly owned that I have a decent amount of. Kawhi Leonard at $8,200 on FanDuel. Small forward, power forward eligibility project for 13% ownership. So there's a handful of guys, and I know they're all pay up options, but it's not that hard to find the salary space to pay up on FanDuel. And Jordan Poole, contrarian option I like, and then more on the high end, I like Kawhi Leonard. I like Nikola Jokic, mentioned him, and then as well as Jimmy Butler. Next question that we have in here is from IC50, said, can I fade the 3 11K guys, or is that doing too much? Yeah, I don't think you have to play the 11K guys on DK today. Do you, Matt?
No, you don't, especially because we don't have a ton of like, or any Thomas Bryant types that like you have to lock in. Like Trey Lyles is really cheap, but he's far from a lock. So no, you don't have to do that at all.
My favorite one on DraftKings of Jokic, Giannis, and Halliburton is Giannis. Like if you were just building one lineup and playing one, I would say Giannis is the guy that you choose there. And it's Nikola Jokic is $12,900 on DraftKings. So a little bit more expensive. He's on FanDuel. Pricing is also tighter. So I'm not going to say you can't play Jokic. I just prefer Giannis for $1,800 less of a price tag and then more positional flexibility at the power forward and center spot. But no, I don't consider any of the must plays for tonight. Jay wants to know about the Warriors Spurs showdown. Post-lock show, which is going to be in 20 minutes, Jay. We'll get you covered. So post-lock show, Matt and I will build some lineups for Jay in the Sims tool for Showdown for Warriors Spurs, which, by the way, also, guys, like we mentioned before, Black Friday, 50% off when you use the promo code Sims in that link below. So we'll break that down in the Sims tool for Warriors Spurs. Jay, don't worry. We'll have you covered. And then Gangrene wants to know Stewart on DK. I have a feeling I do not have Stewart lineups, but let me double check on that. Yeah, I'm not getting to Isaiah Stewart, especially with Duren back. This is just the worst possible scenario for Stewart.
Now, if I were multi-entering, like I wouldn't like X him out of the field, but he's certainly not a guy like I'm going out of my way to roster. Speaking of a player that people are going out of their way to roster, I have an interesting pivot off of Trey Lyles. He's not going to project nearly as good, but he's also getting like 1/50th of the ownership. Daniel Tice, he's 300 more at 3,600. He's played decent minutes in the backup center role for the Clippers since he signed. And he's a guy that can be productive in limited minutes. So again, I'm not saying I love Tice, but I don't think anyone would be shocked if Tice had 23 DK points and Lyles had 15. And that 8 points could be a huge bump when 50% of the field is going to Lyles. So just wanted to call that out.
Okay, I like it. Always looking for some of those pivots off the chalky plays, and Lyles is projected for, like 50% ownership in our latest run. So cash games, there's a lot of uncertainty with Lyles minutes. I would still play him in cash games just because, like, why not match the field with somebody who has upside and good points per dollar play? For tournaments, though, yeah, I definitely think you can make a case for trying to find some other cheapies to pivot off of, or just building more mid-range lineups. And that is one really reasonable way to do it, is playing a guy like Daniel Tice. So I like that chat out there, Matt. Some more super chats coming in. This one is coming to us from Brandon Wagner. I've always said Wagner, but who knows? Maybe it's Wagner. Maybe he's one of the other Wagner brothers, and he's going to be playing on the Orlando Magic in short order. But Brandon saying, Matt, enjoy your new background. You no longer look like you're doing a prison hostage video. And something else, though, which I have to say, Matt is absolutely a hostage of mine. But to try to get you guys off the scent, I had him change his background. So that's been the sneakiness we're up to. But he likes the new background, Matt.
I have no comment.
Okay, there we go. That's a man who's he knows his role around here. And then he says, really appreciate you, man. I know I got combative with you during MLB a few months ago, but really appreciate you. I have no clue what he's referencing, but he just left this super chat to say that he likes you, I guess.
I don't even remember. I'm not a combative person at all, so I don't remember that. But yeah, that wasn't Bug Boy, was it?
No, this was Brandon Wagner, or Wagner if he was on the Magic.
I can't remember, but he'd have to remind me exactly what we got into it about, because I am passionate about my baseball takes, so I'll accept blame there.
All right, we got some more super chats here. First, Daniel Buffington, D-Buff, wants to know, who is your pay-up stud to get to on DK? All things being considered, Giannis is the one. If I had to choose one of those players who's over 10K, I'd go with Giannis for today. But if you're only picking one, Matt, which way are you going?
The more I think about it, I think it's going to be Halliburton. But also, the more I think about it, the more I don't think you have to play any of them. I think you can poke holes in all of them. Jokic is close to 13K, not in a good matchup. Houston's been really good this year defensively, and they play at a slower pace. Now, he destroyed them earlier this season. It's Jokic. He can still go off, but it's not the perfect spot. Giannis, talked about the blowout concerns. He hasn't been the Giannis of old with Dame there. And then Halliburton has been really productive this year, but he's still 11K now. So he's going to have to keep that up. Halliburton's my guy, given how he's playing and the ownership and all the above. But going back to a couple questions ago, I don't think you have to play any of them.
Yeah, I don't think you have to. But if you are picking one, Daniel, then my answer there, I think Giannis is the guy to pay up for if you're only picking one. James Magruder, the best cheap values and mid spend ups. So, all right, let's go ahead and look at DK. He wants to know favorite values and mid spend up. So best cheap values, let's say, let me look at some lineups here that I have built out. Like what's a player that's priced not expensively okay. So let's say sub 5K on DK as far as value options go. Who's a few guys that really stand out to you priced below 5K on DK, Matt? And then we'll go ahead and we'll look at like the upper mid-range price of the salary tier and our favorite options there to answer the other part of James. We're starting with the value options. Who are a few of your favorite guys priced sub 5K?
One guy I like a lot is Moses Moody.
Okay.
Under 4K, he's 3,900. He has shooting guard and small forward eligibility. So two of the tougher roster spots. He's playing more minutes recently. This is a great spot against San Antonio for the Warriors at home. He's going to play in basically any type of game script. If it's blowouty, he'll probably play more, but you're not playing him because of that. Golden State's looking for production like anywhere they can find it, aside from Steph, obviously. And Moody's been pretty good recently, and he's capable offensively. So give me Moody there. I like Alex Caruso. I liked him more if one of those guys had been out. They're not, but he's also playing really good ball right now. He's under 5K. But Moody would be my favorite.
Yeah, so you threw out Caruso there. I was going to give a couple of chalky options and then a contrarian one. Caruso is my contrarian value play to like on DK. So Caruso, $4,800, point guard and shooting guard eligibility. I mean, we've just consistently seen this guy churn out like good fantasy games relative to his salary over the course of the last couple of weeks. You know, everything is relative. Like if you score 38 fantasy points at Caruso's price, which is what he did in a game last week, it looks great. If you do it and, you know, you're like 7,500, it's whatever. But relative to his price, Caruso's put up a bunch of really good games as of late. He's starting now. His minutes have also looked better, which kind of coincides with him playing better. So I do like Alex Caruso as a contrarian option. If you want to go really chalky, I understand why the field is getting there with Trey Lyles. Not saying you have to load up on him, be overweight to the field or anything, but for cash games, I think you should be playing Trey Lyles tonight. And then I also like Caleb Martin for cheap. This Heat team is just, I know they're winning games right now because Bam's playing out of his mind. Jimmy Butler's playing better. They're kind of thin beyond that. And Caleb Martin is somebody who, at a cheap price point on DraftKings, project for some ownership, not anything crazy, but around 20%. I like Caleb Martin as a value play as well at 4,000. What really helps him fit into lineups, shooting guard and small forward eligibility. So you get him in the shooting guard spot, the small forward spot, the guard spot, the forward spot. So Caleb Martin is a cheap option that I like as well. Mid spend ups. So whatever you want to consider this to be, I don't know, I guess like 7K and 65 and above, maybe something like that. Who do you like as the mid-tier spend-up options per James's question?
Cade Cunningham's like easily the top guy there. A priority on this slate on both sides, it sounds like. So he's the guy there, in my opinion. I also like Karl Anthony Towns, who I mentioned earlier at 8,400. Anthony Edwards down to 8,700. He looks good. So those are three guys, right, you know, between 7,800 and 8,700. I like quite a bit.
And by the way, some news that's come in. We do have the Heat starting lineup. Kyle Lowry, Josh Richardson, Jimmy Butler, Haywood Highsmith, Bam Adebayo. Richardson, by the way, is another guy in that cheap range, especially now he's confirmed starting. I like getting to him. I have some Josh Richardson lineups. And then we've also got the Knicks starting lineup just came in, which is the normal starting lineup. So nothing else really to see there. And then the Bulls also, Alex Caruso sticking in that starting lineup, and then confirmation that Kobe White and Zach LaVine are in because they are both in that starting unit. So Josh Richardson, another guy that I think we could get to for a cheapish price tag over on DK and FanDuel.
I got to call out Scotty Barnes also because I've mentioned his name a bunch of times, but in that price range, Scotty Barnes is my favorite. So sorry.
I was going to say for me on the upper mid-range, I agree with you. I think that we should be getting to Cade Cunningham. Jordan Poole, that's going to be my contrarian guy to get to at the guard. We've talked about him before, but you know, we've got Jordan Poole at $6,800, only project for 7% ownership. The usage has been on the rise as of late. We know he's a guy who's not afraid to shoot, especially after he sees one or two go through the bucket. So Jordan Poole, that's a contrarian guy that I like on that like upper mid-tier end. Brandon Wagner is asking, is 100% Cunningham and Middleton insane? He's playing in the $4.20 max. Across 20 lineups, if those are a couple of players you want to take stands on, I don't have issues with Cade or Middleton being a couple of take a stand type guys. Do you?
Nah, I'm a big proponent, especially in NBA, of like having a core and then building around it. You know, having a 4, 5, 6 guy core that you use. Doesn't have to be like in 100% of lineups, but if you're playing a 3-entry max, oftentimes I'll use a 5-player core and then switch up the other 3 around them. So no, I don't think that's crazy at all on a 20-entry max to do that. 150, I wouldn't, but you know, 20 is a lot different.
Yeah. So for 20 max, yeah, totally reasonable to take stand on a couple guys, and those are two of the more reasonable ones to do it on. Anthony Peters wants to know, will stacking Ivy and Cunningham kill tournament lineups? Ivy's cheap enough that I'm not overly concerned about it.
Like for that also, we just talked about it a little bit ago with Poole and how like you're not as worried about the blowout potential in tournaments because of the upside. It doesn't change the upside. I look at that similarly with Ivy and Cunningham. Like what if Cade Cunningham has 5 assists to Ivy? Or what if that game just goes off a little bit more? Like, I don't even think that it's bad correlation at all. Like, Cunningham playing well does not mean Ivy will play any worse or vice versa. Like, they could both play well together, and Ivy is cheap enough. So, no, I don't mind it at all. If you're talking about, like, 2 big men like Okongwu and Capella that, you know, don't see the court together, then yeah, sure. But that's not Ivy and Cunningham.
See what else we have as far as super chats here. That is going to answer all of those. And by the way, we just saw a report here. Jalen Duren is expected to have his minutes monitored on Friday. Minutes monitored, what does it actually mean? Nobody knows, right? It's very vague. It's coach speak bullshit. They're always monitoring. You monitor everything. It's like you monitor the score, you monitor the minutes, you monitor how many fouls players have. But I do think that with Duren coming back, like I don't expect there to be a massive minute ceiling. So Duren, we got some questions about him before. Not like any kind of real priority on this slate. If you have him in a lineup or two as a last man in, cool. If you're playing single entry, don't have Duren in that lineup. Anything changed for you with this latest update on Jalen Duren?
Nah, I'm with you. I already wasn't that high on Duren for what we had talked about earlier, and this certainly doesn't make me like him anymore.
All right, let's see what else we have as far as questions are concerned. And 9 minutes to go until lock, guys. If you haven't done it, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's one of the easiest ways to support our content. And then also, if you're in Discord, any final questions, we'll be answering them here. And stick around post-lock, because Matt and I are going to be hanging out until 8 p.m. Eastern time to react to any news in the games and any kind of late scratches or anything, as well as build some lineups for Showdown in the Sims tool, which discount 50% off right now using that promo code SIMS. But question in Discord here is from, where is it? Oh, here we go. We've got Jets World wanting to know Lyles and Vassell or Martin and Bruce Brown on DK. So 2v2 here, Matt. Lyles and Vassell or Martin and Bruce Brown. Which side do you go towards?
Can you repeat that for me?
Yes. Trey Lyles and Devin Vassell or Caleb Martin and Bruce Brown on DK.
Man, I'm not really looking at Bruce Brown or Vassell all that much, so I don't love either combo. I guess give me the Trey Lyles one, I guess.
All right, let's see what else we have coming in here. And I agree with you also, just because Trey Lyles, I think of all those players, has the most upside relative to their price. I don't hate Caleb Martin, although with Richardson starting and Martin coming off the bench, it does make Martin a little bit less of a priority. I'm getting to a little bit more Richardson now, a little bit less of Martin in light of that. But still, I do have some exposure to Martin either way, but Trey Lyles, I think, makes the most sense of all those guys anyway. Timmy, 2937, wants to know cash core plays for today. And yeah, so Timmy, 2937, players I think you should absolutely be playing in cash games for DK purposes: Trey Lyles, Buddy Hield, Chris Middleton, Cade Cunningham. Anybody else you would add to that mix, Matt?
No, just going back to the Vassell question, I will say, just because we're on live before lock, like if you're playing one lineup, I wouldn't play either of those combos. Like Bruce Brown and Vassell are multi-entry plays on this slate, like at best. Neither of them project well at all. And the NBA's a projections game. So you can have a couple of those guys in your lineups. Like obviously it's not all projections, but I would look to change one of those combos personally.
Let's see what else we have in here. The next question Einstein wants to know is Kevin Love in play today on DK. Kevin Love, somebody you're considering as a pivot off of like Richardson and Martin?
We see this like every day, but he pretty much consistently always grades out as a really good leverage play on DK. And it's the same story today. 10% chance of being optimal, only 6% ownership. Like he's another one of those guys I mentioned, like Daniel Tice, playing Kevin Love instead of Trey Lyles. You know, with Trey Lyles, he's only 3,800. He's got power forward eligibility. I don't love him, but he's in play. If I were multi-entering, he's another guy I'd probably have around 10% of.
Let's see what else we have here. And yeah, same sort of deal, like one lineup, wouldn't play him, but is he in play? Sure. Don't have an issue with getting to some exposure to him. And I know that Einsteinium typically is somebody who's playing more lineups. DraftKings wants to know how much Lyles is too much. He's getting to 100% of them in the 20 max. I would be pretty uncomfortable with 100% of Trey Lyles. And like, there's such a wide range of outcomes with his minutes. I do think in cash games, absolutely should play him. I would be, if I was playing 20 lineups on DK, I'd probably play him in 10 and just like match the field on him.
Same. It's not even just the minutes. Like it's still Trey Lyles. You need him to play well in those minutes. Like he's 3,300, so you don't need too much from him. But I mean, he could play 25 minutes and get 15 DraftKings points, like easily. That's a Trey Lyles type box score if he doesn't hit his threes or whatever happens. So I personally wouldn't want to play 100% Trey Lyles. Another pivot that our tools like a lot right now is Landry Shamet. He's grading out right behind Jayshawn Tate, who also looks good from a leverage perspective in our tools. Shamet projected for about 18 DraftKings points, 18% chance to be an optimal on this slate, only 10% ownership. It feels really gross to even recommend him, but we're talking about pivots off of Trey Lyles. So I think that you can look at a guy like Shamet. How about you?
I'm not playing Landry Shamet tonight. I think it's a little bit too thin of a play. And the other thing too, like Shamet is just somebody who I very rarely play in DFS. There are slates
he sucks.
like he starts and like, he'll be really popular. He has such a limited ceiling.
You're right. I will say though, like he's a guy that's gonna play decent amount no matter what, but could also get more run in a blowout. So like he's a guy like that could play the whole fourth quarter if Milwaukee does run away with this game. Again, not playing him because of that, but just interesting how much our tools like him from a leverage standpoint.
Let's see what else we have coming into the Discord channel here. And we've got just a few minutes to go until lock. They went by really quick. Oftentimes the show goes really fast because there's a lot of injury news. But today it just happened to go really fast. Try to get some of these simple ones. I'll answer really quick. Gangrene, Poole, and single entry. Yes, I do think Poole is a good single entry play. Some other ones here. We've got Tim Lee wants to know flag planner position by position. We did go position by position earlier, but has anything really significantly changed for you, Matt?
Nothing's changed, even non-significantly. I mean, everything's pretty much exactly the same. How about you?
Yeah, so I'd say the only thing that's really changed for me from the start of the show is that I have a little bit more exposure to Josh Richardson and a little bit less of Caleb Martin because of the Heat starting lineup. But it wasn't like a crazy change. There's like a couple more lineups of Richardson, like a couple less of Caleb Martin because of that starting lineup.
I did want to ask you on a this slate related note. I mentioned it earlier about how I've been going back and forth with the Grizzlies guy about Morant or Halliburton. Who you take it, Morant or Halliburton? If you're like starting a team, obviously, answering this question, consider Morant will be back and healthy after 25 games. So I'm not counting that.
Yeah, pretty easily Halliburton for me.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that is the consensus answer?
Probably. Maybe now, actually. I don't know. Put if you know how to do it, Jacob, and we could look at this in the post-lock show. Can you throw a poll into YouTube chat if you know how to do it, Jacob, and we'll see what the cool. Because I really don't know what the public consensus is. Given how well Halliburton has played lately, I think he's the answer. He definitely would have been last year, but I don't know.
Isn't that like Mike? I agree that it's Halliburton, but I also think that might be a little bit prisoner of the moment.
Potentially, but Morant's never played as well as Halliburton's playing right now either. So I don't know. We'll see what some of those results are. We'll bang out a couple more of these questions really quickly. JEW, any must needs for the 7:30 games? Any must plays from the 7:30 games? No, there's nobody from the Heat, Knicks, Bulls, or Raptors that say like you have to play today. There's some like good options, nothing that's a must play. Grind DFS.
Sorry, go ahead.
Answer these as quickly as possible. Grind DFS for DK GPP. Give me 3 of your favorite plays under 10% ownership. Ooh, that's really. I don't know. There's anybody. Well, Jordan Poole's one of them. Let's see. I really like Jordan Poole under 10%. I like Caruso under 10%. I don't know. I have another one under 10% that I really, really like though. I'm just gonna go those two.
Give me Scotty Barnes.
All right. And here, C Love, CP3 and Nas Reed, or Schroeder and Lowry, CP3 and Reed. Rocky Raccoon, Tate is the last piece in on FanDuel on GPP of squeezing in Jokic. Did I play Jayshawn Tate at all today? Jayshawn Tate. I have 12% of Tate. Sure, as the last man in, you could plug him in. That's not like a massive issue. There we go. We got all of those questions in right before lock. So guys, thank you very much. But don't go anywhere. Matt and I are going to be breaking down the slate continually here in the post-lock show. And shout out to Vivid, who are sponsoring our show. They've sponsored a lot of shows as of late. If you guys want to check them out, you should do so using the link we have below, because it's going to give you a $300 bonus on your first deposit. The standard deposit bonus offer, there's only $100. So you want the couple extra $100 in your pocket. So sign up at Vivid using our link. If you're signing up for the first time, get a couple extra couple extra $100 in your wallet there. Good way to help build the bankroll. The best way to help build your bankroll is taking advantage of these deposit offers and stuff like the $25 secure play at Vivid Picks, where even if your first card over there loses, you're going to get it back in Vivid Bucks for up to $25. If you or anybody know has a gambling problem, call or text the number 1-800-GAMBLER. So we are now heading into lock, Matt, and we're also going to, I haven't forgotten about Jay. Jay asked us a while ago to build out lineup for Warriors Spurs Showdown. So Jacob, I saw the question that you had asked us in the Slack chat. So it is Warriors Spurs Showdown that he wanted us to build lineups for. So we'll do that here in a second. But as we're getting to that, first I want to ask you, Matt, what are your biggest rooting interests on this slate in both ways, right? Who do you need to have a big game? And who, if they have a big game, would ruin your night?
Scotty Barnes is going to be the answer to the first question.
Okay.
And Giannis is going to be the answer to the second question.
Let me see what some of the FanDuel ownership ended up being relative to my final lineups. All right, who do I need today? I mean, I need Buddy Hield, but like the field is playing him in a pretty big way anyway. Nikola Jokic did land in 50% of my lineups. So I'm going to say Jokic is somebody who I would really like to see have a big game, because Jokic only project for single digit ownership. I got way overweight to the field to him on FanDuel, my most rostered center by a mile. So Nikola Jokic is going to be the guy who I really do need to play well. Player who I do not want to play well. Let's see who's really popular today that I don't want to go off. I'm underweight to the field on James Harden. He's 7,400 on FanDuel. I definitely think that he's a serviceable option. There's a wide range of outcomes with the Clippers and Harden, so I'm underweight to the field on him. Him having a big game wouldn't destroy me, because I still have some shares in, but I am about half the field on James Harden, so wouldn't want him to do well. Who else is another one? Dame is projected for right around 20% ownership on FanDuel. I only have him in 11% of lineups. He's another guy that I'm going to be rooting against. By the way, just got the Wolves starting lineup. Conley, Edwards, Nickeil Alexander-Walker sticking in the starting lineup. Karl Towns, Rudy Gobert. So Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's been playing bigger minutes for the Wolves as of late. It's good to have the confirmation that he's in, because it's not like he's guaranteed his starting role, and that could change at any time on a dime, but he is going to be starting for tonight. Also, any other final thoughts or anything like that before we start looking at the showdown?
No, again, as you mentioned earlier, we didn't have a ton of the injury news that we were expecting, so it's pretty straightforward. I'm hyped to talk up this showdown slate, though. I think it's a good one.
All right, let's go ahead and talk some. Do you play NBA Showdown regularly, every once in a while?
In the middle of those, like probably closer to every once in a while. I don't love it, but you know, especially if you have like standalone games and I'm up or whatever, I'll play a little bit. It's not like a money maker for me. Like I'll play it. It's mostly just for fun.
I'm probably in the same boat as you, where it's like, particularly if I'm late, here's where I'm most apt to play Showdown, which I think is probably the case for most DFS players. If I think, number one, if I think it's a good slate that has an edge, that's going to be important for me. I have to have some value plays I identify that I like. I'll run lineups in our sims, see what pops out, and see how good I feel about those lineups. But another thing too is if I like the Showdown slate and my main slate lineups really stuck for the night, then it's like, oh, all right. It gives me like a little extra incentive to open up the sims, build some lineups in, and see what ends up popping up there. And so, Jacob, throw the sims on screen and we'll look at the Showdown lineups. We've got a question from Jay in our Discord channel. And one of the perks, like we say on here, being in the Discord channels, you could ask us questions whenever you want. We answer them on the show. And I'm not going to be able to see any of this on my computer screen. This is so hard to read. Any better luck? I'm going to try it on my other screen. Is it easy for you to read what's on the screen here, Matt?
No.
All right, cool. So let me pull this up here on. All right, cool. We got the exposures from Jacob as well as the top lineups. And here we go. I could read this off here. So the top projected lineup that we have for tonight in the Sims, and it is leaving $800 in salary on the table. It is Chris Paul in that multiplier spot with Devin Vassell, Klay Thompson, Moses Moody. And I remember, Matt, you said that he's somebody who you like as a little bit of a contrarian play for the main slate. So it stands to reason you probably like him a little bit as, you know, it's Contrarian's a little bit different on a 1-game slate, but still, it's not like he's the most popular player in the world for that. Moses Moody, Steph Curry, and then Victor Wembanyama. So we do have kind of a star-studded lineup, actually, which looking at this lineup, I do think it gives a lot of reason to play some of those mid-range guys in that multiplier spot. And that's what a lot of our top projected lineups here have, Matt. If we read off the captain options from the top lineups, it's Chris Paul, Klay Thompson, Devin Vassell. Then there's a Steph Curry, a Wemby, but then another Chris Paul, and then a couple of Steph Curry lineups. We're getting to a lot more of those mid-range guys than we typically see in Showdown, which I could get behind, especially because when you look at what that makes the rest of your lineup look like, there's a lot of really good players that we're getting to in some of these lineups that have like a Chris Paul or a Klay Thompson in the captain spot. How do you feel about some of those builds? How do they look to you?
I feel exactly the same way as you do. Like, I think it is a good slate for those mid-tier captain options, just because it looks like the guys that it's just easier to roster everyone we want to roster. And like, especially with a guy like Curry, who's the guy from Golden State that you'd look to spend up on, like projections don't love him at his current pricing. So it just makes a lot of sense to me.
Some early results, by the way. I think these are very telling results, Matt. Have you looked at the results? So if you haven't looked at it, don't look at the results of the YouTube poll. But we've got like a couple hundred votes here, just about. Halliburton, Morant. What do you think? How do you think the voting split is going?
I think that people are really, really prisoner of the moment. So I'm going to say Halliburton's the one getting most of the votes.
85% of the votes going to Tyrese Halliburton. 85%.
I think that's honestly, like, I agree. Morant hasn't played quite at this level offensively, but he's been pretty damn good himself. And it's not like we've seen Halliburton do it for a full season. I think it's close. Like, I don't think Memphis people are in the right to be like offended that it's a question, but I also don't think it's easily Halliburton.
By the way, we just got a starting lineup for the Pistons here, and it kind of coincides with that Pistons news that we got with there being monitored minutes for Duren. Not starting today. No Jalen Duren in the starting lineup. They're going to Marvin Bagley. So Cunningham, Ivy, Thompson, Stewart, Bagley. I think people might just go like, oh my God, I want to go play Bagley. This is a worse situation for Bagley than it was before. Like we weren't playing Bagley a week ago.
Right.
We were playing Bagley when he first got into the starting lineup, and some mixed results there. It went like okay, it went well, and then it went poorly a bunch of times as well. But if you weren't playing Bagley the last few games without Duren in, you're not going to play him now that Duren is back, because this is still going to reduce Bagley's minutes even if he's starting.
I wish Duren were starting, honestly, because I think his ownership goes down to not zero, but way down. And I wasn't playing him anyways. Like, he's unplayable now at 6,600. Before, he was like, you could take some shots on him, especially if you're multi-entering, but he's basically unplayable for me at 6,600.
Yeah, and at $6,700 on FanDuel, center eligible only. Yeah, not somebody that I want to be playing. So let's go ahead and give people a pivot. If you have a lineup with Jalen Duren right now, who would you pivot to on DraftKings, Matt? And I will do it for FanDuel and look through some of our data and projections. So Duren, if somebody had a Duren lineup, what should they do? Who should they change Duren to?
For me, you need 300, but the easy swap is to Gobert, who's still pretty cheap on DK at 6,900. You know, unless you locked everyone from these early games, I'm sure you have a couple guys you could switch out. So probably wouldn't be a 1-for-1 swap for me there, but Gobert would be the guy if I could make it work.
Yeah, so I'm going to give a couple of answers here because it's also going to depend on how much salary you have available. But Brook Lopez is $6,800 on FanDuel, so only $100 more than Duren. Was only projected for 1% ownership heading into lock here. And that game isn't on the first, just making sure. So yeah, 1% owned Brook Lopez. I think that's a decent swap off of Duren over on FanDuel. If you don't have the $100 extra in salary, then I'd say just go to Zach Collins at $6,300, who's had some massive games, Zach Collins, for the Spurs in the last couple of weeks. So I'd say either of those guys. Lopez, if you have the salary. If not, go to Jalen Duren at $6,700. Any other thoughts you have on the Pistons starting lineup and then not including Duren?
No, I would actually play Lopez over Duren on DK, and he's $1,000 cheaper. So you could also go down to Lopez on DK and upgrade somewhere else. Just wouldn't play Duren.
All right, let's see what else we have as far as And I did have a couple of Duren lineups because, like I said before, not a priority for me, but he was somebody who, like, hey, last man in, he showed up in a couple of Sims lineups and I was okay with it. But yeah, that's what I just did. I just pulled open the FanDuel app and just did, because it wasn't even something I felt like I needed to use the Sims for or the late swap tool while I'm on the show. But this one's just like global swap, just changed a few Duren lineups I had over to Brooke Lopez. And I feel pretty good about that swap. Let's see what else we're getting to in the Sims for the player exposures now. So, Jacob, first thing I want to do here, if you wouldn't mind, is to filter the positions and just show the captains. I want to see what all of our captain exposure is and which players we're getting to overall, right? Who are the pay up option we're getting to? Most of it, I assume it's going to be Steph Curry, but you never know. Could end up being a little bit different than that. And then also, I want to look at some of the value plays and the utility guys that we end up getting to. And all right, here we have it on screen. I could kind of make this out here. So captain options, we're getting to Steph Curry the most, followed by Chris Paul. Then we've got Wemby showing up there. And those are the only three players that we got double-digit exposure to. Steph Curry being the most popular one. Then we've got Chris Paul showing up after him. We're way overweight to the field here. Well, not way overweight, but overweight to the field on Chris Paul. And then also Wemby there popping up in the top three. Does any of that surprise you, Matt? If you're building one lineup right now for a showdown single entry for this late slate, would you go with Curry, Paul, Wemby, or somebody else in the captain spot?
I think Paul looks the best based on what we just discussed a couple minutes ago, and that the mid-tier looks optimal from a building perspective on the slate because there's a bunch of guys we want to roster. If I had to choose one of the upper tier guys, it would be Curry, but that's just like a gut call. He's overpriced for what he is. Obviously, you have less risk, though, in a showdown slate because on a main slate, he's overpriced and you need him to like outscore guys that he's not projected to be close to. On this slate, like if you get an outlier Curry game, he's going to be worthy of being a captain.
Yep. I'm going to go with Chris Paul. So with Chris Paul, it's you're getting just a really cost-effective option. And I've really liked what some of those lineups looked like with Chris Paul at the captain. So that's going to be my answer there. Chris Paul, there were some lineups that really look good. And if I remember correctly, our number one overall projected lineup, just to read that off again, was Chris Paul, Devin Vassell, Klay Thompson, Moses Moody, Steph Curry, and Victor Wembanyama. So that lineup being our top one, like it definitely influences how I view it a little bit, knowing how well that lineup projected from a simulated ROI perspective, but still definitely somebody that I think that we should be getting to there. And then if we look at some of the other options in the flex and some of the value plays and whatnot, we have here Chris Paul in about half of our lineups. Same with Devin Vassell, each of them in 50% of lineups. Two players that we got to in half of our lineups in the flex spot. Then Wemby was in 49%. We had Klay in 48%. As far as the cheap options, Dario Saric, kind of funny. So Moody was in our number one overall best projected lineup, Matt, but hardly getting to him in like the grand scheme of things. He's somebody who is in, like relative to Showdown, he's in mid 20% of lineups, and it's way overweight to him. He's only projected for, single digit ownership. So he's a really contrarian play for Showdown we're overweight to, but it's not like we're getting him in like 40% of lineups or anything.
No, I guess that makes sense though. If he's so low owned and he's coming in like in the 20s for us, we're still getting like double the field. So I dig that.
Let's see if we had any other super chats or questions that I missed while we were going over everything there. Nothing. And by the way, the Sims contest trainer for Showdown, so you could build lineups for Showdown and simulate them right in that same tool that we have. It's all included as part of our NBA package. So when you sign up using that promo code SIMS, all capital letters, using that link below, you get 50% off. It includes all that. So if you guys like to play Showdowns, if you like to play the late slates, the turbo slates, like all of that, it's all included in our Sims and contest generator. Back to Discord, just to make sure that we didn't miss anything there. And we got a couple of questions. First from Einsteinium. He says that he ended up with Tyus Jones in 24% of his lineups as one of his contrarian pieces. Is that too big of a stand? 24% of Tyus Jones. Is that too big of a stand in your opinion, Matt?
I don't hate the play, so I kind of want to say no. But on the other hand, I kind of want to say yes, just because I don't think that that's needed, but I'm not going to argue with whatever tools you're using to put that together. So I wouldn't like go out of my way to change it, but I don't love it, I guess.
I would rather play. I know the Pool's more expensive, but not like crazily so. I really like Jordan Poole as a contrarian option on DK. I'd way rather make a stand on Jordan Poole at $6,800 than Tyus Jones at $5,900.
I agree with that. I mean, especially when you're considering ceilings in tournaments. So I'm with that.
Do you know how many games this year? You're not going to know, but I'll have you guess. How many times this year do you think Tyus Jones has scored over 30 fantasy points this season? And when do you think is the last time it happened?
I think he's done it once, twice, maybe. I'm going to say twice. And the last time he did it was 6 games ago.
Last time he did it was way longer than 6 games ago, actually. Last time he did it was October 28th against Memphis. He scored 33 fantasy points. It's hard to really see there being much upside in Tyus Jones at this price point, in my opinion. He's $5,900. His most fantasy points he scored in any single game this year was 33, and it happened a month ago, October 28th. And that's the last time he scored over 30 fantasy points. Then you consider he's $5,900. Not to say you should just build your lineups by box score watching, but I think that kind of paints a story, does it not, Matt?
It does. I will say, though, like, if I like both of them together, kind of like we talked about with Cunningham and Ivy, like, I like Poole more than Tyus Jones for sure, but I would not be afraid to play both of them together if that's how it landed, because like I said, if Poole plays well and Washington's in this game, I'm sure you can say the same for the majority of their starters, but that's like kind of, trying to thread a needle. So I'm with you mostly.
All right. We've got, on signing him. I think 24% is too much of Tyus Jones. That's my opinion. If you feel differently and you love him for whatever reason today, cool. That's your feeling. I wouldn't recommend it personally. Then we've got VA Prince 33 wants to know, do we like Clay as a pivot off of Chris Middleton? So Middleton, very, very popular tonight, Matt. But are there any pivots you like off of Middleton? If you do, is it Clay or is it somebody else that you'd say is the pivot to get to off of Chris Middleton?
I think from like a projection standpoint, it's Middleton. But sure, there are plenty of guys that I think are in that price range that could have better games than him, especially when you consider, the unknown minutes projection for him. So I don't have anyone like that. I don't have one guy that I love, but there's a lot of guys in his price range who I wouldn't be surprised if they outscored him.
Yeah, so Clay project for 15% ownership. So it's not like he's not super popular, but he's not, like crazy contrarian either. He is the one that I think makes the most sense as a pivot off of Chris Middleton. And Clay, also a player who, there are a lot of parallels between Clay and Middleton in terms of like where they're at in the point of their career, their kind of games that they had when they were in their primes. Not exactly the same, but similarities in the price, and then also the positionality that they have across the two. Clay's another guy who's just not showing upside this year. And just before, when I talked about Tyus Jones not having upside, it kind of does appear to be the same if you only look at the box scores of Clay. But at the same time, how many times have we seen the Clay games where he just goes nuts and hits a bunch of shots, and the usage on the upswing for Klay Thompson? Kind of before, when I was talking about Jordan Poole and how his usage is on the upswing. Well, Clay, the last 2 games, 32% usage, 27% usage. They are actually his 2 highest usage games of the entire year, and they've come back to back.
Yeah, I like that call. I'm with that. I'm with you on the parallels with them also. And yeah, similar price points. I don't think that going to Clay instead of Middleton is outrageous. I'll also say Jaden Ivey. Clay's a little bit more expensive. Ivy's a little bit less expensive. I like Ivy a lot in this starting lineup. He's a microwave type scorer that can get hot. So Ivy a little bit less, Thompson a little bit more.
Got the Kings starting lineup: Fox, Duarte, Herter, Barnes, Sabonis. People bringing up Duarte in chat. We knew he was going to start. We've seen Murray out as of late. Keegan Murray, and Duarte's been starting. Is he somebody you had interest in for today? We knew he was going to start earlier, though.
Yeah, no. I think he's been priced up a little bit. He's a guy, he's 3,900. He's not expensive, but obviously much preferred if he's 3,300. Like, he's fine as a filler piece, but no, not going out of my way for him at all.
At $3,800, I have Duarte in 2.7% of my FanDuel lineups.
Yeah.
So that is,
about right.
Let's see, what does that equal out to? So Duarte being in, so 4 out of 150 of my top lineups had Chris Duarte in them. So not really somebody that I'm looking to prioritize in any kind of way. And He's not the best fantasy producer. So it's kind of a funny thing where it's like we're talking about a guy being priced up because they're $3,800 or $3,900. So, it's relative to priced up, but, it's a fairish price for Chris Duarte. He's also getting some ownership tonight.
I know Adam talks about this a lot. Like, yeah, the 3K to 4K doesn't seem like a big price jump, but it's actually like the biggest price jump in terms of percentages. So yeah, 3,300 to 3,900 isn't massive, but it's like 20% of his salary. So it adds up.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I think about it the same are you into MMA or UFC at all?
Not at all.
Okay. So when somebody misses weight at the lower weight classes, I think of it the same way, right? If somebody misses by 3 pounds at 125 pounds, it is way different than if somebody misses weight by 3 pounds at like 205 pounds. It is such a bigger advantage at the lower weight classes. I know it's kind of a weird analogy, but it
makes
about earlier also.
Makes a ton of sense.
We've got a question here from Einsteinium. He's saying as a follow-up, he is both Poole and Tyus Jones in single entry. I would not play them together in single entry.
For me, I probably wouldn't either, but I don't hate the correlation because, like I said, if Poole plays well and they're in this game, Tyus Jones is going to play more minutes. So I think you're alleviating the blowout concern by playing both. Your downside is a lot lower. Your floor is lower, but I think your ceiling's higher too. That said, like we talked about Tyus Jones, he's not a must for me in any type of game script because he doesn't show a lot of upside.
We've got some, super chat from ORAT14. And that is, he wants to know Giannis and Hield or Halliburton and Middleton for DK. Giannis and Hield or Halliburton and Middleton. All right. That's
a true toss up.
I'm going to go Halliburton and Middleton for DK.
I am too, but it really is close. Like I think it's within like very few points of each other. Now it might not end up working out like that, but on a projection basis, I'm sure it's very, very close.
Have any of these games started? If they did, we could tilt our faces off a little bit. If not, we'll look for some bets to give to the people before we sign off for the night, Matt. We'll do some bets, and we'll also talk about the Black Friday deal over at Odd Shopper. But first, look at some results from the early game. And how the hell is Knicks Heat not started yet? And how is that even the game 7? So I know that we'll bring this up all the time about how games never start on time. This might be the most egregious example I've ever seen. This was
it's annoying.
7:30 p.m. time. 7:52. No tip yet.
Most games start at 7:40, so like 7:30 or 7:10 if it's a 7 p.m. start. This looks like it's an ESPN game, and they're taking their sweet damn time. So annoying.
This is ridiculous, though. This is 23 minutes post-lock. You could have a player who would be a late scratch in this game. You don't find out until 20 minutes after it's supposed to tip. This is outrageous that they're this slow to get going. By the way, Raptors up 21-9 in the early going on the Bulls. The Bulls getting their asses handed to them early. The big performer so far, Jakob Poeltl, 4 points, 3 rebounds, 2 assists, and a steal for Poeltl in the first 6 minutes of the game. So he's the hot player opening at the gates here. But let's wrap this up, Matt, by looking for some bets to give to the people for tonight. We'll go ahead and look over at Odd Shopper. And by the way, we've got some updates coming to Odd Shopper. One of the prime ones being is that we have an experts picks page on there now. So I'm actually going to just be posting my favorite bets for the day right to Odd Shopper, where I could tag my favorite bets. I'm going to be up there, and I think that's going to be updated and ready to go in like the next couple of days or so. And now is the time to sign up. If you guys want to sign up at Odd Shopper, this deal is only going to be available until Monday, our Black Friday deal. You sign up using the link below and promo code Black Friday. So that is going to be all capital letters, BLACKFRIDAY, all one word. You get 50% off the first time you sign up at Odd Shopper. You use that link below, that promo code, 50% off. And Odd Shopper has been really helpful to me in terms of simplifying my betting process, especially now that sportsbooks have gotten a little bit quicker with adjusting lines. When did you first get into sports betting, Matt?
Years before I even got into DFS. So like years ago.
So for me, where I used to really make a lot of money sports betting just by being quicker to news than the books, where it used to be like Giannis gets ruled out during the day. You could log into DraftKings. You could bet the other side of the game. You could bet the player props, the overs on every single player from the Bucks. And you have like 5 minutes until the player props came down. And then that no longer became a viable option. They kind of closed that loophole up. They got quicker at reacting to news. And now the way that I find my biggest edge is I just Go to Odd Shopper, look at what's projecting the best place those bets, and it's helped me be profitable this year as the landscape has changed a little bit in the sports betting space. And like I said before, you can now get 50% off when you sign up using that link below. And also, we've changed some of our packages and the pricing. So it's $50. And with that 50% off, you're getting it for $25 here for Odd Shopper. So let's go ahead and look for some bets here. Any bets that have stood out to you or anything you'd like for NBA tonight? If not, that's okay. Odd Shopper will help us.
Yeah, no, there's nothing like on a personal level that stands out to me. So I'd let Odd Shopper do the work here. And just to your point, like the sports betting landscape has changed a ton, especially over the past couple of years. So I'm with that. It's just a different game now.
Let's see. What is projecting well? You know, it's funny. I think this kind of says something too about a player that you and I were talking about liking as a contrarian option, a pivot off of for DFS. Klay Thompson's over-under for threes tonight, Matt, is 3.5, and it's plus money on the under. So we're projecting this pretty well for sports betting purposes because it's a coin flip bet. We actually projected to win 50% of the time, but you know, think about it. If you were flipping heads or tails and you're getting plus 110 every time, you're going to do pretty well in the long run. So Klay Thompson, who we have at 3.5 threes, winning half the time, losing half the time. He's a guy who we talked about potentially liking as a pivot off of Chris Middleton. We could also bet him for under 3.5 threes at plus money. So I think that's a pretty good look here on Klay Thompson. Under 3.5 threes. The best available line is at DK. If we go ahead and look at some of the other books, which also is always helpful to me if I'm trying to consider a bet and comparing it to other spots, it is plus 110 on DK, whereas Pinnacle has it minus 113. FanDuel has it even money. Tipico has it even money. So when you see a line that's kind of way different from other books like that, it kind of does stand out. Why, from a market shopping and line value perspective, why that Klay Thompson line does stand out. So plus 110 under 3.5 threes for Klay Thompson. That's a spot that I like quite a bit there.
All right. Man, that line seems high.
Yeah, 3.5 under 3.5 plus 110. I wonder how many games has Klay hit 4 more threes this year?
Can't be many.
Pulling it up right now. Give me a guess, and this is how we'll finish before signing off. How many?
He's been so bad from a DFS perspective. It's hard to imagine that he's had a ton of games with at least 4 threes. You know what I mean? Because like that would be signs of him playing decent from a DFS perspective. That said, the line is that I'm going to say he's hit over 3.5, 5 times this year.
Close. Out of 15 games, he's done it 4 times, and you're getting plus 110 on the under on that.
That's crazy.
Klay Thompson, under 3.5 threes. That's the bet of the day from Odd Shopper. If you guys are looking to sign up, use that link below. And guys, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. I got dinner to eat. I got my family to hang out with. Matt's got his dog to make sure it doesn't bark and wakes his daughter up or anything like that. So guys, if you haven't done it, do us a big favor. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Hope you all have a great weekend. See you back here on Monday.